Good morning. Welcome to ControlsCon's first in-person pre-con session. You're in the advanced technology track, so if you're not supposed to be, I'd say move now. I'm Nicole Conklin. I'm a director of products and marketing for Cochrane Supply. I'm your host today. I'm very excited about our lineup. We have 7 vendors here to show you their latest and greatest technologies. Technology is ever-changing, and it is my goal to make sure that you're aware of the latest and greatest out there, whether it's time-saving tools or if it's features to add to your portfolio to give you that competitive advantage. If there's anything that you see here today that you would like to learn more about, please feel free to contact me or your sales representative. Before we get started, I have a couple housekeeping items. First, let's take a minute and make sure your cell phones are on silent. We want to make sure we're respectful to all of the presenters. The other thing is to please make sure that you hold your questions to the end of each presentation. We have mic runners. We're going to try to get to every question. And if we don't, we'll have plenty of time during lunch after the sessions to be able to get time with the vendor or myself or anybody there to help you. So this morning, our first presenter, our first vendor will be ControlsCon official sponsor, Vicon. Kevin Mamajak, sales engineer for Vicon, is here to show us the Vicon Cloud Suite and Analytics. We will see how to access secure trends and data and all of your assets for better dashboarding and reporting. So instead of me just sitting here talking about what you're going to see, we're going to have Kevin come on up and get into the Vicon Cloud Suite and Analytics. Thank you.
Pass the mics.
Yeah.
Now, you did tell them that the exits are behind you, and they might be actually to the side. If you feel a little faint because of the technology we're about to show you, there is oxygen masks underneath the desks. Please put it on yourself first and then help the person beside you. All right, so I am going to talk about Niagara Cloud Suite. So what is it? And what we'll do is I'll kind of walk you through what the entire suite is today and what it will actually become, because it actually shows you how we're kind of visioning this, working with you guys and our customers. And so part of what you'll see is roadmap stuff, but what I want you to understand is that there's a lot of plumbing that has to be done when we actually bring these services out into the Niagara framework. So when you look at the first thing that we had to accomplish, and this is one of these things over the last 3 years, I've been involved in a lot of cloud connections, and there's a lot of us, especially me, would struggle because we'd have to deal with digital certificates, and you'd have public and private keys, and then you'd have to take those certificates and onboard a device with a certain digital certificate. And then I had to deal with creating an MQTT connection and things of that nature. So what we wanted to do in the Cloud Suite is enable that technology so that it's pretty seamless and that I don't have to worry about all those certificates. So since we have Niagara as the framework and we have the back end in the cloud, we're able to do some things that we can automate that process. So the cloud authentication piece, which will be the core piece to onboarding a JACE or a supervisor, does all of that work for me, okay? So all I have to do, and this, I do have a video, I actually will show you how to do that. It will handle all of the device certs, it will handle all of the IoT connections in the back end, and in the back end waits for the actual communication to the actual JACE or supervisor. So it sets up the storage in the cloud. Each customer has a walled garden of data so that you can keep that in a private space for them. And then the next phase of this, or the first introduction of the actual Cloud Suite component, is Niagara Data Services. So this is essentially how we get the histories into the cloud so that we can do something with them, right? So there's 2 steps that we'll take. There's a step that we'll have to say, hey, model the JACE. And that model means it's going to look at the entire JACE or that supervisor, and it's going to look at how all of those points and all those devices are related to each other, what tags it has, what statuses they have, and then it will send that model to the cloud. And then the cloud will kind of cook on it, and it will then create a database in that cloud storage that we'll be able to access, okay? So, and then the next step would be to actually tell the service what histories I want to go up, because not every customer wants all the histories to go up. They might pick or choose. So what that allows us to do then at the very top is now we have a method that we can take something that's inside of a building network, take that history data, put it into the cloud, and it's in a time series, and then we have a set of APIs that a third-party company can call to retrieve that data. So they can create little data connectors that will run it through analytics package or machine learning packages. So those are some of the things that you have to look at when I take a cloud and send all that data to it. I can start to take advantage of those multiple cloud applications that are out there to analyze that data. So what we want to do to fill out Niagara Data Service is, because we hear it from customers and folks like yourselves, is we also want to have those schedule histories and those alarm histories up there, because those give context to the data that we have up there. If I have a space temp, I want to know whether it was occupied. I have that history, but I also want to know if it was scheduled or overridden. All of that information is then sent to the cloud. So not only will we, and the gray is, it's coming, we're working on it, right, is that we want to have that complete history up in the cloud so that applications can take advantage of that. And then it's pretty cool, I didn't realize this, but our engineers even looked at, hey, if we've got some of those alarms up there and we have some of the histories up there, we can also probably plug right into Microsoft Graph, and then we can send it to Teams, like in the chat channel, right? Things of that nature. So that's going to open up some doors that will give us some solution flexibility. So when we look at the next one, which we just started beta, I think on Monday of last week, and that is Niagara Recover. So Recover, so how many here know that there was actually a cloud backup service in Niagara? Yeah, so a few. So not many people know. Gotcha. So with Niagara Backup, or the Niagara Recover, what we've done is we're going to take that service and we've ported it over into this service so that it's a module. Okay, it's an actual part of that service. So what's nice about this service is the previous one, you were limited to really one backup and you were limited on size. Here, you're not limited on size anymore, and we'll keep 5 backups in the cloud for you, and then we'll let you choose one to keep. So what's exciting about this particular service is that we understand right now that the workflow is that if I want to restore that JACE, I have to actually download the file, and then I have to visit the actual location, get to the JACE, get to the supervisor, and do that restore. Everybody in this room has probably told somebody at Cochrane or Tritium that when is it someday we might have remote restore, right? That would make our jobs a lot easier. So we've got a lot of heavy lifting, but we are doing that heavy lifting in the framework so that we can get to a point where we can do a cloud-initiated restore, where I don't have to be on-prem. That also then sets up something that all of you have been asking for, which is, will we ever have over-the-air updates someday, where I don't have to actually do a commission? So these are exciting things that we are doing. This is heavy lifting. This isn't just something that you slap on. We have to look at the fundamental changes inside the framework to allow these types of connections and these types of services to be put in place. So when you look at that backup today, yeah, backup, okay. Oh, wait a minute. Now you're telling me that I can restore it in the future. That's an interesting direction. That's an interesting vision, especially with over-the-air updates. So Niagara Remote is another one of those things that we heard you loud and clear. How can we help you better service your customers? And one of the things that you have difficulty is sometimes when you're inside that network, you have to set up special VPNs or you have to have special access. How can we make it easier so that we can actually get back into that JACE or that supervisor that's connected to the cloud and actually do some remote engineering? Change the wire sheet, right? So if you've noticed, over the past couple years, Niagara has more and more HTML versions of all of those components that we see in Workbench. So pretty much Workbench has been kind of placed on the JSON, the supervisor, so that you can get to it in the browser. So remote will facilitate me to be able to connect to that service, get to the wire sheet, look at any of the UI that you've done on that Niagara station, do overrides. You can issue a URL to the customer to be able to get access to that. So it opens up a very complex IT component that is only outbound. You're going to see that outbound connection. So IT likes it because there's nothing's banging at the front door, at the firewall. This is all initiated from the service out. So it's secure in that way. So when you look at the next component is usually when I talk about this service to a third party, the first thing they ask me, the next question after they say, okay, it's a common API, I can write one dashboard and service multiple customers, right? Because it's just one API, just swap out customer numbers and device IDs. They're like, okay, when can I send a command to Niagara? And they get pretty excited. So we hear that. We need to create a secure type connection back from that service through the cloud so that a third-party company could then take a recommendation, submit it to the cloud, and then the cloud would send that recommendation down to the actual JSON supervisor. Okay, that's kind of interesting when you think about it. So I can have something that is watching patterns, and it looks at, a couple, let's say I have 50 rooftops, and it comes up and says, hey, why don't you go shut down rooftop number 15 and 17. It could then send that recommendation, and then Niagara can receive that recommendation. So this command channel is something that's going to be very important in the future for us to be able to have these third parties offer these recommendations. So this is kind of how the suite is designed, and this is the vision for it, and these are the components that you should expect to see. So the dark colors there are the ones that ship today. So the backup is in beta, and then you'll see that we have access to as the other services become available, we'll add them into the beta as well. So keep in mind that these are services. So each service can stand on its own, and these are subscription services. So this is the first time we have customers starting to think about, this is something I'm going to pay on a subscription, I'm going to get all the updates, I'm going to get all the new features, those types of things. So keep in mind that all of these can stand on their own. The common piece is that authenticator. So I can have just the backup, or I can have just the remote when it comes out, right? I can have just the data services. So there's services that plug into that component. So what I'm going to do now is show you really quickly how to onboard a device. Now I took the liberty to record this and put in all kinds of things since I didn't know I'd have an internet connection. But what I do is I simply just drag the service into the station. So you can do this by, however you want to do it. There's 3 ways to do it. I just drag it in. That adds the cloud service. I will make the caveat here. If you're doing it to a JACE, you needed to actually put the cloud drivers onto the JACE, otherwise you'll get a nice little layer. So I never had that happen to me, of course. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of clean this up so that I can show you what's going to happen. Because when this first happened, it's actually pretty amazing. If you have never done an actual cloud connection through MQTT, this is like, okay. But if you've done that and you see this, it's going to actually be pretty cool. So I start registration. That registration gives me a URL. That URL has a special user code that's only good for about 30 minutes. That is how I'm going to actually onboard this to the cloud. So I install the software, I start the registration. Here I realize I forgot to whitelist niagaracloud.com in my Workbench because my company knocked that off. So I left that in there because you will probably face that same issue. But don't worry, we can open up a browser and actually then register this. So I'm going to open up Chrome here. I'm going to take the URL, I'm going to paste it. And then I'm going to actually register this device. So I just did a right-click start, put in the URL in the browser. It's going to prompt me for my credentials. I'm not going to give you my credentials, but I'm now going to onboard this device to the cloud. And then what I want you to watch is what happens to those services, right? Because that authenticator is going to do some major heavy lifting for me. Here I actually have to choose what customer's data is going where. I can give it a project name. I give it a location. So typical things that you would want to organize this device in the cloud, right? So I'll go ahead and give it my VA51. It's a Jace 8. And it's the second one I have. So now I've just successfully onboarded this device to the cloud, which means it got its own unique digital certificate. It talked to the IoT hub, connected it, is preparing to do the database for all of that. And if you watch over to the left, what will happen is as things get authenticated, and you'll see we're waiting for that final authentication, you'll see that it will start to auto-configure everything on the left. So all I did is typed in my start credentials, and then boom, it configures everything for this to connect to that cloud space, to that private cloud space for that customer. Okay? So all I had to do is do that initiation. It installed device drivers. It configured the HTTP client, the MQTT client, the MQTT client, and it sets it up so that it says, all right, I've got all that heavy lifting done for you. Now I really need you to, let's get the model done. We pause it here on purpose in case you wanted to throw in an extra tag dictionary to have some extra tags there. But all I have to do is say, go ahead and send the model. So I hit execute on there, and it takes and looks at everything on that Jace, packages it up into this model, and submits that to the back end. And then the back end cooks on that for a little while. It looks at it and breaks it down, says, okay, these are the devices that are there. I need to create a database for this customer, put in get ready to receive those histories, and then it's off to the races for our next step, which is what do we want to send in those histories. So here I'm going to take a look at the histories. I enabled an auto one. We give you an easy button. We don't turn it on, but we have an easy button called auto, which takes everything, all the histories that are on that supervisor or that Jace, and sends them. So that's the one I've configured here. You can also go in and look at or create your own schedules to upload individual histories. So if you have one that's every 24 hours, or you want to do energy consumption and you want to send all those up there, you can actually choose to do it every 24 hours. Defaults every 15 minutes in this environment. So when I hit that auto one, it will just take any new histories. Now when we onboard, if I have 10 years of data, the service and the back end actually work together to compress all that and transmit it in a compressed state to the back end, and then it expands it, puts it in. So we don't want to waste that bandwidth. So once I get all those histories, I will remind you, you need to activate the channel. I can't tell you how many times I forget. I record it and tell you, and then when I'm looking at it, I'm like, why isn't this going? So we actually have an interface that I'll point out that they've added because of, I don't know if it's because of me. So see how it says export's ready? It's letting me know that the channel is ready to go and it's ready to receive. I'm going to hit execute so I don't have to wait for 15 minutes, and then it will actually then upload that data. Now my data set was pretty small, so it went pretty quick, but it would actually do all of that onboarding, okay? So that set up the configuration. I picked the histories. Now all I have to do is, if I've subscribed to the cloud, the backup service, right? It actually sent that and saw that it was actually part of my subscription, so it just automatically added it. I don't have to add any software to that. It shows up in that channel. What I did is just for the demo, I can pull it up here and say, hey, take a look. We default to doing it every Sunday at 2 a.m. plus or minus 1. You can go in there and then change that, okay? So that is a way of getting the backup, and then I can trigger that off, and off it goes. So where this all goes then is I have a portal that allows me to see simple data. I can go up and see some graphs. I can see all the points that come in. I can see some histories, and I can save these for a customer to review. I then have access to the backups, right? So I can see those. So this will take and look at the simple charting. I can save it and give it a name. So the portal is both a tool for you to manage these customers, and then it's also a tool for the customer to get access to simple graphs or access to the backups and things of that nature. The APIs, so when I actually create an API for a third party to access the data, it is unique to that third party. And you and the customer can decide that you want to renew those every 30 days, 90 days, every year. So the customer and you will have complete control over who accesses the data. Here I'm just editing the backup, I'm giving it a name, I'm putting in comments. When I make a backup preferred, I don't have to worry about that ever getting replaced. So it's kind of round robin, right? So as new ones come in, the old ones fall off, but if I prefer one, that one will always stay. So if I had a baseline copy, I could go ahead and mark that, okay? So that is backup. I will show you real quick that when you look at the API, this is like another cloud program I used to extract that data so that I can do dashboards. I can run it through third-party analytic applications once they have those connectors done. So this is the power where you start to look at, I can create one dashboard that could service multiple type of customers, right? So if I'm that third-party analytic company, this is actually a dream come true because I don't have to worry about gateways at the customer and then I have to maintain them. And if they move to a new version of Niagara, do I have to change my gateway code, things of that nature. So this becomes very powerful. Now, there is a technical track, which I'll put up here, that is on Friday that will walk you through how that API works, right? And how the actual components can be called or the model can be called so that you can look at the model and then understand what it represents or how it relates. This is a child of this, right? So you can actually see the actual components and connections to that model into that data, okay? So we'll take a look at that in a couple tracks, okay? So, am I on time?
Yeah, you actually got shorter a bit, but
Oh,
you're early.
okay. All right.
We're gonna be break sooner than later.
Okay.
So, oh, that threw me off. Questions? Where are my mic runners? Oh, there you go. A couple over here. Not sure where Melissa went.
I saw on one of your slides that you had an AMQP transport.
Yes.
Do you have a driver available for that, or is that within your cloud interface?
That's just within our cloud component. And the AMQP, if you don't, it's a queuing process so that we can actually queue up all of the histories so that if we lose connection to the cloud, they don't disappear. They just wait for the cloud to respond and connect again. I'm not the chooser of the questions.
The
Nicole
subscription
is.
services, are they going to be point-based?
What was
price?
that?
The subscription services, is it going to be based by point? The price is going to be based by points,
By device.
by device? Okay. And would it require an active SMA?
So yes, they do. And so there, when you look at the price list, there'll be how much data that you want to store in the cloud, and then how often you want to egress it so that you can put together a package of what that would cost. And the reason why you want the active SMA is because all of these things keep changing with the plumbing. You're going to want the next version of the Niagara.
Yeah, real quick, do you have any sorting features for your trending on the cloud, or does it recognize any groupings that are set up already in the J's?
There's actually in the API the ability to ask for it to sort. And then you choose how much you want, start and stop dates.
She's running over here. Where's your helper? She's hiding.
On the subscription model, is that based per customer or is it based per contractor? So if my customer gets mad at me, they can still have their data?
Yes.
Okay. And is
customer.
the subscription directly through Tritium or is that resold through like Cochrane?
It's resold through Cochrane.
Okay.
Yep.
Good questions. Oh,
What's the underlying database model on the cloud?
Why do you care? It's a time series database. That's all. What was that? You'll see pretty fast performance, and it's highly scalable. So this runs in Azure, and they're they essentially helped us architect the components of all of this.
So when Azure goes down, our building goes down.
No, we are a hybrid. That's why this is so important, right? Your control still stays inside the building with Niagara. This is just archiving the histories, and I didn't even share with you, we actually configured the archive history provider so that your Niagara people have no idea that you've just, like, if I've got 10 years, you reboot that supervisor and you're always yelling at me, right? So now we say, hey, take that 10 years and keep it up in the cloud and only keep maybe 6 months. If I'm a Niagara person and I ask for that history, it just gets it from the cloud. I have no idea. Niagara works just as if it was native, and all your control stays inside your buildings. Good question.
For confirming it's going to live in a Microsoft house.
Yep.
This notion of the cloud, externally accessible by applications.
The API?
Yeah, well, if you're going to allow third-party tools coming in through the firewall to get at this private cloud, what is the mechanism for sanctioning whom is allowed and who isn't in terms of cyber risks?
Yep. So first of all, this when they access the data, it's in the cloud. They're not going to go through a VPN or anything. That's protected up in there. And you issue a service account. So I would create an API key just for you, and it expires. So I can also delete it. I can withdraw it. So you can have access now, and let's say 30 days, I don't want you to have access anymore. I would go and delete that key, and you no longer have access.
All right, let's do one more. And then we can do questions at lunch or at the booth. They'll also have sessions on Friday. Go ahead, Paul.
Awesome. So I have a question about the versioning and managing the downstream devices you're connecting with the API.
Yes.
So you're operating at what versioning in Niagara, 4.12?
So we currently, our long-term release, so it's 4.10. And then
4.10.
our latest feature release. So that's currently 4.12.
Okay. And then what happens when you change to the next gen Niagara platform? Will it
So
still
this
work?
service, right, runs in Niagara,
Mhm.
regardless of whatever version. So we choose the versions that we support for the long term because we're changing and modifying components in. All
Right.
of that leads forward. And then the API is versioned in itself by itself. So as the API matures in the cloud, we don't deprecate version 1, we just have version 2. So our cloud connectors and all of our third parties have a way of managing those types of connections.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great job. Our next vendor is a gold sponsor for our ControlsCon event, Distech Controls. Our presenters are Stephen Prater and Aaron Fish. Oh, I'm sorry, Stephen Prater, Sales Support Engineer, Aaron Fish, Product Owner. Which product he owns, I'm not sure, but we'll figure that out. They're here to talk about their new Eclipse Building Intelligent platform and their peer-to-peer software for all user types. Thank you, guys.
Come on. Good morning. So yeah, my name's Aaron Fish. I've been at Distech now for 4 months. Steven, I'm actually in a new group at Distech, part of the R&D team called the Product Owners. It was run by Eric Sweeney, so I work for Eric. And our role is to really bring your perspective in to Distech's development process to make sure that as we're looking at things, at software and hardware, that we're really taking it from how you all look at it. So my background, I was an SI in Pittsburgh for about, I think, 8 years and we used Distech the whole time, so I'm pretty familiar with the product. But since I've come on, Eclipse Building Intelligence has really been my focus the last 4 months. So what is it? I was thinking about this the last couple of days. That's a good question because it doesn't fit into the categories that we're accustomed to, right? Is it a software? Is it hardware? So I'm hoping to really unpack that for you all this morning and show you some of it because I like to say I'm a Pittsburgher. Show me, don't tell me. So Eclipse Building Intelligence, what is it for you all? So what it's going to do is it's going to enable you to do more with less. It's going to be the premier controller platform. It will dominate and enable you to deliver force faster, stronger, harder, smarter. What is it for us? What does it mean to Distech? So it's the foundation of our controller platform that's going to enable us to quickly deliver for you all as your needs change in this age of digital transformation. When your needs change, we'll be able to pivot quickly and get you what you need. So let's unpack that a little bit. What's different about it? So it's a Linux operating system. You know, if you're familiar with Distech before, the operating system on our controllers was Android-based. So this is now a Linux kernel. It's very modular. You're going to see that theme throughout, and hopefully we can demonstrate it to you. Things can be removed and added very quickly and easily without affecting other things, like Linux. There's a new UI, UX, and dashboarding. It's got a secure boot. So when it starts up, the software that runs during startup is only signed by Distech. You can't inject malicious firmware in it. And we're also focusing on data connection. How can we be good at getting data in for you all? So those connectors are going to be a big part of that, and you'll see that, how you can add them and take them away, and they're good. It's really good at ingesting data. And also we've redone Eclipse Designer. If you're familiar with Envision, it's the DG product. So it's modular. The idea is like Linux. If any of you are familiar with Linux, it's a very modular operating system. You can add things, take things away, and you can resize and do what you need to do. So if you want to add, and I'll show you this as an example. If you want to add MQTT on a controller, like a chiller plant, you can put it in, and it won't affect the code that's running. It won't stop things. You won't have to restart. And you can update them as well without having to bring the whole controller up and down. It can be extended beyond its capabilities through dynamic package loading. So let's talk about where are we now with it and where are we going. So one of the things that I really want to emphasize is the differentiation between our Apex controller and the building operating system, or Eclipse Building Intelligence. The Apex is a hardware, and Building Intelligence is software. Apex can run our old software, it can run our new software. So it can do both. But the idea is that Building Intelligence will end up on every controller we have, VAV controllers, air handler controllers, everything will run it. So what's different about it? So the Apex has a 64-bit quad-core processor. If I hear that I'm as an HVAC controls guy, why do I care? As long as it's fast and it does what it needs to do. Well, what's important about that is those cores can be allocated to specific things. So if you wanted to run a container in the Apex and you wanted to allocate a core just for that, you can do that. If you want to allocate cores to the code that's running, that's controlling your I/O, you can protect it from other things. In the past, on our controllers, when our programming tool GFX would run, it would just run as hard as it could. It would grab as much as the CPU as it could and run as fast as it can. We've toned that down and so that it runs at the same speed all the time. If you've ever worked on it and tried to put a lot on a controller, you can see that scan time would go down. So the Apex has 20 gigabytes of storage. Again, what's the context? What do I care? Well, that 20 gigabytes, if you're crazy enough to use it all for history data, you could store 700 million trend samples. And that'll allow you to do more with that much memory. You'll be able to load things ad hominem, do containers or whatever else. And it also has an AI coprocessor. So what is that? Why do we care? I'm going to show you, again, like I said, I'm a Pittsburgher, so I'm going to show you why. I'll give you a live demonstration of what that is. But an AI coprocessor is a special chip that's designed specifically for the machine learning and AI models. Like a GPU is specific for video feeding. That chip is specific for that, as opposed to a general purpose CPU. One of the new things also is that the Apex has 2 network ports, and they can be configured separately and exist on 2 networks. So you could have one network connected and another. They can have separate IPs. Our previous line, there was one IP, and the 2 ports were bridged. And when we port it over to the other controllers, they'll have it as well. The ones that have the failover, though, will only have one IP. Like the S1000 you'll be able to configure them separately. And we also have a new API. If you are familiar with the Eclipse API in version 1, it was pretty limited, where this is going to be very organic. It will have everything possible. Everything we add will be also in tandem added to that API. So if you want to access Modbus points through it, you'll be able to do that. If you want to look at containerization information, you'll be able to pull that through the API. We've already had a customer in Europe connect to it, and they were creating Modbus objects through the API and configuring them, setting the address, the baud rate, all those things. And to give you an example of the power of the Apex, I did some testing last year with Code Labs, and we were able to pull 4,000 BACnet points through the Apex at 15-second intervals. Now, and that was not even data that was in the Apex. It was simply connecting through the API and saying, go get me these devices and their information. Now, would I say that will happen every time? No, you all know that things are different in every building, but just to give you an idea of the power. Where are we going? So we're currently working on porting this new operating system to all of our controller line. And the S1000 is the one that we're focusing on now. Will come out later this year. But we're also looking at other connectors like UDMI, a REST driver to connect directly. RPort, if you're familiar with that, it's a reverse proxy, open source reverse proxy. Greengrass is a Amazon, no, it's a Google, one of those 3 protocol. We're going to continue building out apps like our display, MyDC Control, and our digital twin as well. And then we're also going to look at having an open SDK so that other people can develop on top of our platform. So this is our rough roadmap of where we're looking. I like this quote. So Jim Morrison, one of his songs, said, "The future's uncertain, the end is always near." So will it building intelligence be a building software? Maybe. We're going to need that in 5 years? I don't know. It might. Maybe you don't need that. Maybe just on the controllers is enough. I don't want to say, we don't want to say what the future will hold, but we're definitely considering it, and this is how we're kind of looking at things. We'll start, right now it's very applicable to a small building, and we're working on moving it, scaling up to a large building and multi-site, and getting the rest of our line and adding the tools and things for you all to get you on and off the project faster. So let me get into a live demo here, if I can. Hopefully my internet is going to be all right. So we talked about the AI accelerator on the Apex, and I wanted to show you an instance where I'm using it. So at my house, I have a bunch of cameras that I have installed, like security cameras. So what I do is I take the feed, I run it through the AI processor, and I run a machine learning model to detect people. So I'm using that, and I've got the data pulled up here, like which cameras have the tech on, what's the inference speed of my AI accelerator right now. So I'll just show you a couple of examples. So this is my side, there's me right there. And you can see it's found me, it's saying it's 84% sure that it's a human being. So again, is this applicable to HVAC, to our in commercial world? Maybe not this, but I think There is a place for it. I could see it is used in maybe like people counting or such things, but I wanted to give you a real-world example of what you can do with that coprocessor. Let's look at a couple other ones. See if we can get one of my kids. There's me cutting or doing the trim. There's one of them right there, running through the yard. So yeah, this is building intelligence. Another thing we wanted to kind of demonstrate on a live system is a real-world example. Like, what if your customer says, "Hey, you know, I've got this analytics tool that I need to move data into for my chiller plant, and it has to be MQTT, and you're your trusted partner. What does that look like now in building intelligence?" So let me just walk through, as long as my internet's going to be fast enough. So this is the packages page inside building intelligence, and you can see right now I have a few things in there. I've got BACnet, I've got containerization, I've got the Modbus, the weather app. I don't have MQTT in there right now, so what I'm going to do is upload it. I already got them saved here, so I'll go ahead. It's telling me right now I don't have anything installed, and the version that I'm going to put in is there, and it's waiting to be committed. So I'll go ahead and commit that to my Apex. All right, it's in. So now if I go into my connectors page, this appears right here. So now I've got my MQTT connector in. I already had a broker set up, and it was saved. So when I removed the connector, that information was saved. So I didn't want to have to set that up here in front of you all, but I already have it there. So I'm already connected to my broker. And if I go in, I can go in and go to points. Let's say add. I'll go to my source, BACnet. Actually, you know what? I'm going to go to the site because I have it all already created in the site tree. Equipment. Set my root topic, chiller plant. And there we go. So if somebody wants to subscribe to my broker, they can still be able to pull all that information. The other thing we wanted to kind of show you is Steven has an Apex at his house in Cleveland. I have an Apex at my house in Pittsburgh. And what we did was he is sending data from his Apex to mine. Let me bring up the other page. He's sending it to my broker, and then I'm subscribing to it. And we just wanted to show side by side. The data is a little bit slower because I've got mine throttled, so it's not updating constantly. But I like to give them a hard time because I put all the units in and formatted everything real nice and neat.
That you did.
So I got through that quick. Any questions at this point? Go ahead. RESTful API, MQTT, Modbus, BACnet. Let's go look, because I have them all in here, all the connectors. We're working on an MBus connector. I don't know if you've run into that at all. I haven't in my career, but it's something that we're working on right now. What's that?
It's more common in Europe.
Yes.
I'm starting to see it here in the States, though.
Yeah. But are you familiar with Node-RED at all? So you could run Node-RED in as a container, and anything that Node-RED could get, you could get it in and then write to the API. So for example, at my house, and I'm kind of crazy, I have all these IoT devices made by a company called Shelly that are out of Bulgaria, and they have an API. So what I do is I pull the data in, and then I use I write to the API to get my data in from all my devices and write to BACnet objects. So anything that's in there, you could use that to pull it in.
Not currently, no.
No.
Everything, if you order an Apex currently today, you would have access to everything.
Just a real quick question. How are you connecting to those right now?
So I have a zero-tier connection, or if you're familiar with zero-tier, so I have a zero-tier client on my laptop, and then I have one at home, and it's just routing through them.
Yeah.
But I also use another reverse proxy called RPort. I talked about it. I have it running as a container, and it's hosted in DigitalOcean, and routes that way. When I was at SI, we actually deployed projects where we had an Apex Eclipse controllers, no supervisor, and then we RPorted data into Code Labs.
That's good. And if you look at the other one he was connected to at my house, I have a Cloudflare tunnel container running on my Apex, and I'm using Cloudflare tunnels to actually give mine a host name out on the real world that I can access.
Any other questions?
Did we answer what oh, okay, go.
We have a mic coming your way.
How do y'all support or manage security in the containers, I guess, because is there a Distech repository that you pull containers from, or are you pulling containers from Docker?
So when I was at SI, what we did was we hosted our own registry in Azure, and we would use them ones, get them and put them in there. And from a security perspective, as well as we wanted it to have control over what got in, so that we didn't, if say there was a newer version and it was in the public one, we didn't want it to just get in there. We're going to make sure it works first on the platform and there's no issues. So that's what we would recommend. I think we don't have our own. We don't have
our own. By default, we go out to Docker Hub, right? So that's our default repository, if you will. But you can create your own either in GitHub or Azure, or really link it anywhere you want and be able to use that as your own repository. It's really up to you.
One of the things to mention too is if you were familiar with containers in version 1, it had to be done through Azure, through the IoT hub, where now containerization is local on that device. You don't have to be connected to anything. And we're working on improving the user interface and how I think we're gonna end up adding user networks as well. Right now that you don't have that, you can't have containers talking to each other. So we may add that feature. We may add Podman support. We're looking at a lot of different things with containerization right now. Anybody else? All right.
So did we answer the what is BI question, hopefully? That we get asked that one a lot, so hopefully we gave you a little more insight to that. All right.
Great. Thank you.
Moving ahead.
We have our next vendor is Honeywell, a silver sponsor for our ControlsCon. Presenting, we have Lou Jones, and he's here to show us the Spider 7 Optimizer and its configuration bulk deployment tools. Thank you, Lou.
All right, I'm Lou Jones from Honeywell. Got a few slides for you. I was told no slides. I have about a half a dozen of them that we're going to take a look at. And then the rest of the presentation will be all live demo. So today we're going to look at the Optimizer VAV and Unitary Controller. And so Many of you are probably familiar with the Spider 7 controller, and we are coming out with a new or newer versions of the Spider 7 controller. And when those new versions come out, we're also going to be rebranding that to the Optimizer VAV controller. So we recently released the Optimizer Unitary controllers. So we have two different sizes, Optimizer Unitary controller. We got the small controller, it has 16 points on it, and we got the large controller, which has 24 points on it. Now, with the Optimizer controllers, we have 3 different primary communications available. 2 of them are doing BACnet IP, 1 is doing BACnet MSTP. Now, when we look at the 2 with BACnet IP, we have 2 choices. We have our traditional 100 base T connection, where we're using Cat5 cable, and we're limited to 100 meters between each device. But we've also recently introduced BACnet IP over 10 base T1L. So T1L uses just a standard twisted pair cable versus a Cat5 cable. So it's a much lower installation cost, and it allows you to reuse existing twisted pair cable in a building that maybe you have LAN or MSTP currently in. If we look at T1L, you can see that it does use that standard twisted pair cable. Instead of having the 300 feet between each device, that extends it out to 1,000 meters between each device. So if you have those situations where you got a large warehouse, and you really need to cover a lot of distance, T1L is very good for that. Now, once again, as I mentioned, it does use standard twisted pair cable. So this could be a retrofit for an existing LAN job or MSTP job, either one. Now, it does require that you do use a T1L media converter. And the T1L media converter is just going to take that standard IP communications on Cat5, Cat6, and that's going to convert that over to the T1L IP protocol, a twisted pair cable. So if we take a look at maybe an existing LAN job. So on our LAN job out there, we got our twisted pair cable, we're talking LAN FTT10, and we got our LAN terminators on there. If I was gonna come in and do a retrofit on this using T1L, I could come in, I can remove my terminator devices, I come in, I remove my LAN devices, I add in my T1L media converter device, and then I can come in and just add in my T1L devices. So now I've upgraded my site from LAN FTT10 up to a 10 megabit IP communications. So for a very low cost, I've taken that customer from a pretty old technology up to IP communications today. All right, so for my demos today, the first one I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through taking a classic Spider controller, LAN controller, and migrating that into a Spider BACnet controller, and then taking that Spider BACnet controller and migrating it over into an Optimizer VAV controller. So what you would have to essentially do to do a retrofit on an existing LAN Spider job. My second demo, we're going to look at some of the new tools that are available with the Optimizer controller. So the first one, we'll look at bulk deploying VAVs or unitary controllers utilizing Niagara application templates. So most of you probably know that we're very coupled. All of our tools live inside of Niagara. So we'll be taking a look at how we apply Niagara application templates. We're also going to look at creating an application restore point using the new snapshot tool. And then modifying application using just a configuration view, and then bulk deploying logic or property changes using a new master sync tool. Okay, so in here, in my workbench, I've already got a station running in here. So here's my station. And I'm gonna go ahead and expand my station. I'm gonna come down under drivers, and here's my LAN IP network setting in here. And in here, I've got my LAN Spider controller. So I'm gonna go ahead and put my LAN Spider controller into engineering mode. And now that I'm in engineering mode, you can see that I have some pretty simple logic in here, right? Because I don't want you guys to get lost in logic, just kind of run through the process of what we're doing. So looking in here at my LAN logic, if I come in, I look at my room set point here, and come over and look at my NV configuration, I can see that, hey, that room set point is actually a LAN network variable, or NCI. So just keep an eye that we have this NCI room temp here. So I'm going to come back over to my logic, and if I come in here and take my logic, I'm going to take and put this inside of a container. So in my Honeywell Spider tool, I'm just going to come down to utilities, grab my application block here, drop it on here. Maybe I'll say, hey, this is going to be my temperature control app. So I have my temperature control app. I'm just going to take my logic, and I'm going to cut that, and I'm going to paste that into my temperature control app. So now all that logic's living inside of my application folder here. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this LAN application, and I'm going to save that into my Spider library. So I'm going to open up my Spider library. It's just a sidebar over here in my workbench. And then I'm going to save this application into the Spider library. So now that I've saved it into the library, now some of you probably remember that one of the nice things about Spider Classic is the network interface was pretty independent. And what that allowed us to do is reuse the same logic regardless of what protocol that we were talking. So while my logic's sitting here in the Spider library, I can come in and I can look at it, and I can say, hey, let's look at the NV configuration view. So there's that NCI room set point, so I can see all my network variables. Or while it's sitting in the library, I can come in and say, hey, let's look at it if this was actually attached to a BACnet device. So I can look at object configuration, and you can see, hey, here's that room set point, except now instead of being an NCI, it's an AV. It's an analog value BACnet object. So at this point, my logic exists as a BACnet device. So essentially, I've converted it. So if I wanted to, I could come up here to my drivers and add a new BACnet network. And then on my new BACnet network, I can come down, grab a new BACnet Spider controller, drop that on the BACnet network, and then if I put that BACnet Spider in engineering mode, I can come down, take that temperature control app that I just saved to the library from the LAN controller, drop it in here, and now that same logic lives inside of my BACnet Spider. So I'm reusing that same logic. So now that I have this converted to a BACnet device, now I can take this and migrate this over to the new optimizer controller. So if I come up here to tools, Our migrator is built in to Workbench, so I can just come down and say, hey, I want to migrate this to an IRM optimizer controller. Okay, so to migrate it first, though, I do need to back up a step, and I need to move that over to my Niagara home, user home. So we'll come up here to our station copier, and I'm just going to copy my station over. And I'll make this Opti Demo 1. So now my Opti Demo 1 is sitting here in the user home. I'm going to come up to Tools, open up my IRM Migration Wizard, and I'm going to select that. I want to migrate the Opti 1 station database. So if I look here, I can see that it's going to put it in the user home stations, migrated stations folder. So we'll go ahead and migrate that. So we ran our migration. It tells me that, hey, the BACnet Spider successfully migrated, but the LAN Spider migration failed. So the migrator only works on BACnet devices, doesn't work on LAN devices. So that's why we did that conversion in the beginning. So now it's migrated. We'll come over here. We'll look at our file system. We'll come down under user home, come down under our stations, migrated stations, and in here's my Opti demo migration. So if I expand that and come down, look under the config bog, down under drivers, under the BACnet network, we can see that that spider was migrated into an optimizer controller. Now it still says BACnet Spider because that's what I named the controller, but you can see it has a different icon. If I expand it, the logic lives down here, down in the periodic program in a different location than what we had in the original Spider. So I could take this entire station and I could start it up and run it. Instead, I'm just going to take my migrated BACnet Spider and I'm going to copy that. And I'm going to come back down to my running station, just to save a little time here. And I'm going to paste that in here. So actually, I'll just rename this and say this is my Opti controller. So now it's over here in my running station. I can come down into my IRM program, look at the periodic program, uses an IRM folder instead of an application folder. But if I go in here, here's my temperature control app. So it rebuilt my logic in a new controller format. So pretty painless, fairly easy to take. Think of an existing LAN job and convert that into an IP-based optimizer job. All right, so the next thing we're going to look at is, let's say that this is a new job, and we're going to deploy optimizer controllers in there. So an example, let's say I got a bunch of VAV controllers, and I want to go in and I want to add those quickly into my station database. So in here, we're going to come in here and we're going to find our user home, and then under our user home, we're going to come down and find our templates folder. Now, in here, I've already created my Niagara template that has my application in it, and then I already exported it out to a Niagara spreadsheet. So if I come in here and I open my spreadsheet, and I go ahead and launch Excel, I can come in here and I can have all my program configuration properties inside of here. So now that I have it in here, I can come in and I can easily add all my VAV boxes. So I have VAV1 in here defined right now. So to make this simple, I'm just going to come in and drag this down and create 5 of these guys. So if all these boxes are the same, it's pretty much click and drag, and I can add these in the spreadsheet. If I have boxes with different flow rates, I can easily type those in or enter one line, then go ahead and drag that down and duplicate those as well. So now that I've added my VAV boxes, I'm going to go ahead and save my spreadsheet configuration. And now that I have that saved, I can come back down into my station. And under my station services, I'm going to come down and find my template service. So here's my template service, and I say, hey, I want to bulk deploy from that Excel spreadsheet. So we'll select our Excel spreadsheet, and we'll open that. And it's going to start deploying the VAVs that I defined in the spreadsheet. So I can see in here that it added those. So I can see those in my template manager. And then as well, now if I come down and look at my BACnet network, here's those VAVs that I added through the spreadsheet. So it's very quick to go in and add all your VAVs into your station database. Now in here, if we come in and look at VAV1, I'm going to come in, look at views. Now each of these are kind of like Venom applications, if you guys ever use the Venom applications, meaning that we have an application configuration view sitting on top of this. So it's easily to come in, modify your set points and stuff like that. So if I come in and I look at my flow control in here, I can come in and see, here's all my flow set points. I can see, hey, it's configured as a pressure independent box. But now let's say, hey, I made a mistake or something changed, right? So I need to send this out to one or more other VAV boxes to update the configuration. So in here, let's come in and say, hey, maybe it wasn't pressure independent boxes. I made a mistake. Maybe it's pressure dependent boxes. So I go ahead and I set VAV1 to pressure dependent, and I go ahead and save that. Now, one of the tools that I have in here is called Master Sync. And what Master Sync allows me to do is come up on my BACnet network and open up my IRM BACnet device manager view. And I can set one of these devices as the source device. So this VAV1 is the one I just changed to a pressure independent box. So on here, I'm going to come down and I'm going to set this as the source device. So I'm going to hit set a source device button, and then over here I can see, hey, this is set as my source device. And then I can come down and I can set any number of other VAVs as target devices. So I'm going to set VAV2 as a target device. So I set VAV2 as a target device, and then I'm going to go ahead and tell it master sync. So take my master application, our source device, and deploy that out to my target devices. So I'm going to hit master sync. Say yes, it's going to run the job. And now, if I come down to VAV2, and I come to the application configure view, I get back over to flow control, you say, hey, this one's pressure dependent. But if I come down and look at the ones that I didn't select as a target, they're still set as pressure independent boxes. So I can pick and choose which ones I want to apply the changes to. Now, I also have the ability to take it a step further. Instead of just picking which device I'm going to write to, every single value or property, I can also decide if that's going to update down to my target devices as well. So for example, if I come up here to VAV1, and I go to that application configure view, I go into flow control, maybe I want to modify my minimum flow and my max flow set points. So I come in here and I say, hey, I'm going to change my min flow set point to 500, and I'm going to change my max flow set point to 900. So in here, I need to tell it which properties I actually want to sync. So conveniently right here, we can check the sync box on here and say, hey, I want these properties to sync down to the target devices. So I'm going to save this configuration change. Now, each one of these controllers, you can also come in, and if you look at those, you can tell each individual device if you want that property to update as well. So if I want this to update on VAV2, I have to hit the sync checkboxes, and then maybe we'll come in, we'll do VAV3 as well. So we'll tell it to sync on those. So now I'll come back up here to my BACnet network, IRM device manager view. And then we're going to set all our VAVs 2 through 5 as target devices. So now they're all target devices. And then I'm going to go ahead and perform that master sync. So we did our sync. So if I come and look at VAV2, you can see that, hey, it updated my flow set points, so 500 and 900. But if I come down and look at one of my other VAVs, it didn't modify those because we didn't have the sync properties checkboxes checked. So in here, another thing that we can do is we also added the ability to do snapshots. And snapshots are kind of save the day type things. So if I come down in and I look at my logic in here, so I got all my logic in here, I can take a snapshot of that programming logic. So I can come in and say, hey, let's take a snapshot of this. So snapshot has a copy of my logic. So what happens is when I come in here and I'm having one of those bad days and I'm trying to fix my application and I accidentally delete something, and at the end of the day I'm just begging to get back where I started, just wishing I never really touched it. So now I can come in and say, hey, let's restore that snapshot. Pick the snapshot I want to restore, say okay, and refresh my tree, and now it put all that logic right back in there. So I am running close on time, so I'm not going to be able to show you everything I was going to get through, but if you stop by our booth, I'll be glad to walk you guys through anything else. So,
questions? All right.
good.
Thank you. So our last presenter before break, our next one is Johnson Controls, a gold sponsor of ControlsCon. I almost said Cochran Supply. And presenting, we have Chris Lane with us, Director of Products product management for BAS. He will be showing us a Facility Explorer tools. They have over 20 productivity tools between Niagara and other tools. So they're not going to be able to show them all today. He's just going to be able to get into a few of them and some of the latest and greatest. So without further ado, Chris.
Thanks, Nicole. Let me get set up here. Okay, good morning, everybody. Again, my name is Chris Lane. I lead a team of product managers at Johnson Controls responsible for our building automation system products, including brands like Facility Explorer, EasyIO, Metasys, Verisys, and such. And as Nicole mentioned, today I'm going to be showing you some of the field productivity tools that we have available within the FX product family, starting off with our Niagara-based supervisory controllers, and then I'll show you some of the field productivity tools that we have on our equipment controller layer as well. About 20 years now it's been when we first started this partnership with Tritium on their Niagara framework and their JACE platform. When we took it out to our targeted customers, one of the things that we noticed right away is the unfamiliarity with the Niagara workbench. So what we tried to do is create some workflows within the product itself that makes it easy to kickstart the configuration of a new station. And that can also lead to a station that has some predefined components which also can be edited, so that when you start becoming more familiar with Niagara and you want to start doing your own stuff, we're not precluding the ability to also edit what we've automatically created within our environment. So let's start by demonstrating some of the initial features. So right now I've got a connection made to the Workbench platform, and under the Tools option here, if I go down to the New JCI Station option shown here and click on that, what this will do, and let's give it a name, demo, is allow you to use a check the box method to kickstart the addition of all your network drivers and other services within the station. So this is a glimpse of the new station wizard, and I can go through here, and if I wanted to add an N2 driver, I can add that, including the quantity, and give it a different name. So let's check one of those. If I wanted to add a LAN configuration driver, click that. BACnet drivers, either IP and MSDP, IP and SC. If I wanted to add an NDIO driver, I can do that from this screen, just a simple check the box method. Clicking next gets me to some of the services that I could add to the station. So the weather service, the tunneling service, the SMS service, and then I can finish the station, and then once I'm finished, I can automatically start the station, and then allows me to then start working with those device networks that have been automatically added to it with that new JCI Station Wizard. So what I'm going to do is start from this station here, which I created, but I created this with the new JCI Station Wizard, and as you can see, I'd selected which services. Did I select the weather service? Yes. And I also selected the BACnet driver. So the BACnet network was added when I selected the checkbox for the BACnet network. And if I go into the BACnet network, I can add some BACnet devices. Let's let's do 8. And then let's do a VAV. Let's do an air handling unit. Let's do central plant. Let's do a boiler to show you what the results when we do a boiler. And let's do like a rooftop unit. How about a fan coil? Unit vent. And let's just do miss. And then OK. So that's typical adding devices to it. But what is neat about the FX Workbench is the JCI BACnet Import Manager. So up over here in the View selector, I'm selecting the JCI BACnet Import Manager. What it does is it shows all of those BACnet devices that I had just added with the BACnet Device Manager. Let's select them all and go to Edit. So in the Facility Explorer Equipment Controller family, we have BACnet devices like our FX PCGs, PCAs, PCVs. We just came out with our Gen 4 versions, the F4 CVMs, CGMs, those classifications of controllers, and they're all programmed with a tool called the Controller Configuration Tool, CCT. Defines the sequence of operation within those controllers. So if you want to have a VAV box, it will define how that VAV box operates, air handling unit, how that operates. When you go through that CCT programming exercise, the resulting file is called a CAF file. It's got a CAF extension, controller application file. And what we've done with our JCI BACnet Import Manager is allow the tool to parse through that CAF file and look at the points that have been defined with your equipment controller sequence of operation and match it up to a system library so that it can automatically generate the points, the devices, and all sorts of station components automatically. So if I go to, let's start with the VAV controller, and select the appropriate CAF file associated to the VAV controller. And this one, I'm going to pick that. So again, what I'm doing is I'm associating the output of the CCT program, which is a CAF file, to that device that I've added. And I'm given all sorts of options here, one of which is the type of graphic that will automatically be created. The KitPX graphic option that's shown here is our legacy graphics library. The V2 library was just released, I believe, just a few months ago. So I'm going to select that and show you the new graphics that we had created. And then we have these options down at the bottom that allow you to create a new graphic, or maybe you don't want to. Maybe you want to alias one graphic to multiple VAV controllers. In this case, I'm going to set it to true so that when it's finished, it will automatically create a new VAV graphic for us. And let's go to the AHU and do the same thing. So bear with me, it's going to be matching these up, changing the graphics, making the set new graphic to true. Let's reference one of the chiller plant applications. Select the V2, set that to true. Let's go to the boiler plant. Let's pick a rooftop application. And the reason I'm doing this is to show you some of the graphics that'll be created. And let's make that another VAV box. And I'm going to keep the graphics as the old one, just to show you the difference, and then click through. Okay. So again, what I've done there is I've added, with a new JCI Station Wizard, added the BACnet network, and then I went into the JCI Import Manager and associated the output of the CCT file, which is the CAF file, to the devices that I've added. And what you'll see now is if I go and look at the station with a web browser and see what was created, voila, you've got a functioning FX80 with all of that stuff already pre-configured automatically. So we're starting off here with our home page. This home page is built with Niagara components, so it's the way that we've designed our default home page. If you don't like it, you can go into the editor and change things around. But we took some time with some voice of customer and some user analysis to organize this homepage according to what we felt was, a nice way to present the initial screen for an FX80 station. So up here we have tiles of various different information that can be displayed. Up here, this tile here is showing today's date, who's logged in. So I'm logged in as the admin user. The last time I was logged in, I used the weather forecast to show that there. A picture of the building, you can change this to whatever JPEG image of the building that you might have. And then links down here under Summary, Scheduling, Trend Histories, and Link Manager that gets you to some predefined managers that we've included with our appliance. So like, for example, point groups. If you wanted to group all of the VAV zone set points into one group, you can show that by going into the point group manager. Jumping to the alarm console or the alarm history. Getting an offline device summary, so showing all of the devices that are not currently online, and then also all of the offline point summaries. So if you're starting up your system for the first time of the day and you want to look at what's offline, get a quick summary report of that. And then links to some commonly used features like scheduling, the histories, and then a link manager, which is unique to our appliance, which allows you to create links without having to go into the wire sheet. You can use links by just selecting a check the box method. Then over here on this tile over here are the network devices. So as you can see, I had added that BACnet network component, and then I'll show you the devices that were added. That was added with the new JCI station. Then we have links to some important system functions, like being able to back up the station, setting up the weather service, change your city so you get the appropriate temperature. User info tag views, which I'll get into in a bit, the security dashboard, and then the search widget, which I'll get into in a bit. But let's see when I click on the BACnet network. Here are all the devices that were added, and if I go through here and look at the VAV controller, this graphic was automatically created when I associated that VAV single duct CAF file to that VAV BACnet device. This is our new graphic view for a VAV box. As I mentioned, this is the version 2 of our graphics that came out a few months ago. So the images have been refreshed, and then we've also added some information on top of that, including like set points, status points, and then over here, if there's more than one page of data needed, we can switch pages. So this is showing a view of the room sensor and the room information. All of this, again, was created automatically when I associated that CAF file to that VAV box BACnet device. So if I go back to my devices, Show you the air handling unit that was created. Chiller plant that was created. The boiler plant that was created. The rooftop that was created. The unit vent. And then finally that last one. This is the older version of our graphics. So you can see the difference in the look and feel of the graphics as well as the information being presented. But let's go back to that VAV box and show some of the other things that are available besides just the new graphics. So up here we have hot links to the points. So you can see all of the points associated with that VAV box. The extensions. So this is a way to quickly add and configure point extensions like histories, alarms, and trends by simply using a check the box method. So again, for users who are not that familiar with how to do that within the Niagara environment, they can do that here from a web page just using a simple check the box method to do that. So if I go into right click on the alarm for that aux schedule, when I right click on it, it offers me up what kind of alarm extension do I want to add to that. So if I wanted to select one of those, it gets added. We have a default manager that is in the services folder of the station that allows you to set your defaults. So the various different COV timings that you want to set for your histories or your alarms, that can all be set as your own personal defaults so that when you do use this check the box method, all of that stuff is done for you. All right. If I go to this little drop-down arrow, the other thing that automatically gets added is the BACnet tuning policies. So the BACnet tuning policies allow you to optimize your BACnet communications so that only the appropriate things are being written to based on their point type. So if you're unfamiliar with our point types, like which ones are volatile in memory and which ones are non-volatile in memory, this will help you out. It will create the appropriate tuning policy such that the JACE is not pinging points when it shouldn't be. It might only ping on a change of value, for example, or that the stale time for the point is set to an appropriate level based on our knowledge of the application that was selected. We can also show the set command so that you can be able to override the points within the graphic using the set command. Let's go to the tag manager. The other thing that the JCI import manager does, actually let me get to a different view, is automatically tag all of the points for all of the devices that you've added. So we've created a tagging database called FX, which combines the haystack tags, the Niagara tags, and then some missing tags that we put in there under the FX tagging dictionary. So if I go into Home and go back down and look at the tag view, you'll see here are all the devices. And if I pick like the VAV box, I can see all of the tags and tag groups that were automatically created when I used that JCI import manager. So if you have a need to tag your database for whatever reason, for exporting data and using an analytics package that uses Haystack or Niagara tags, it's automatically done for you. You don't have to go through and fat finger and find out which tag needs to go where. The other use for tags would be to go into the search. So if I wanted to search on discharge and temp, I think that's yeah. So that it's searching on the tags, discharge and temp, and the results are all of those points that have been tagged with those two tags. Let's see. What else did I want to cover with that? Oh, remember when I was doing the adding of the devices and changing the version of the graphics? And I had to select the version 2 every time. If I go into the Tools Options, so again, Tools Options, and then go to this node called JCI Options. So again, it's in the Tools Options, and then select JCI Options. I can go up here and change that default to the version 2 of the graphics, so that the next time I create my station, I don't have to do that switching of the graphic view from the old style graphics to the new style graphics. It'll be set up as my default. The other thing that we put in here to help out under the services, if you go to the FX service, remember the graphics that were created have a specific look and feel. So let's go to that VAV box again. So there's a kind of an orange banner that describes what that box is. There's a certain background color that's used. The tables have a certain design to them. If you go into that FX service, you can change the primary, which is the color of the banner. So let's just change that to, let's change it to white. The secondary, which is the table color, let's leave that black because it's not really visual. And then the background, let's change that to black. And then save. Easy way to change the profile colors without having to go through the PX editor and do that for you. So again, it's a useful way to kind of kick off or kickstart the creation of a new station, and then also for when you're in that station to easily create the BACnet devices, all of the points, all of the graphics, all of the tagging, simply by leveraging work that you've already done within the CCT tool, defining the sequence of operation of the controller. All right. Okay, that's it for my section on the Niagara FX appliance stuff. Now I want to go and show you some of our other utilities that might help you. So anybody here work with our CCT tool in creating CAFs? So this particular portion of the presentation is specifically targeted to you. So we have a utility called EasyCAF. So EasyCAF supplements our controller configuration tool. Again, that's the tool that creates the logic within our equipment controllers. And there's some things in the CCT tool that are sometimes a little bit frustrating when it comes to making large-scale changes. So that's why EasyCAF was created. And what EasyCAF does is it allows you a way to edit your CAF file using a different user experience, one that's maybe more appropriate for the kinds of workflows that you want to take on that. So if I go in here and open one of my files, so this is again the list of CAF files. Let's pick a VAV app again. Let's pick this one. This is an offline editor, so this isn't going to allow you to download anything. It's strictly offline editing of that CAF file. And what it's doing is presenting all of the objects that were defined with CCT in kind of like almost like an XML editor type format with a network tree. So as you can see, here is a tree view showing all of the network inputs, all of the objects. We can go to the points grid and look at all of the various different points in a read-only, look at all of the parameters, look at the states table, any trends that were defined, the job information, and then the point assignment, which I'll get to in a little bit. One of the things that's kind of a quirk with our current CCT is if you've created an application that used an old version of our network room sensors, the NS7000, but want to use the new NS8000. The system selection tree hasn't yet been updated to allow you to select that within the system selection wizard. So if you've got an old app that was created using the old sensor, the old NS7000 sensor, you can go in and use EasyCAF, and let's pick that sensor and right-click on it and convert that to an NS8000. So what it's going to do is automatically remove the old NS7000 and add the NS8000 and make the appropriate logic connections within the environment. Here's the resulting output. So it's saying that it's added that NS8000 device to the logic and made the appropriate connections. Let's close that out. And as you can see, now it's changed from the NS7000 to the NS8000. The blinking that you see going on is an error check. So every time you open up a CAF file with EasyCAF, it does an error check. Every time you've made changes and then save it, it'll do an error check to make sure that you haven't corrupted the file with anything that you've done. The other nice thing about EasyCAF is this point assignment. So within the CCT tool, those who are familiar with it, when you create an application and you want to assign your inputs and outputs to the physical hardware channels, it gets a little clunky, especially when things are assigned in the wrong spot, depending on maybe how your controller's been wired. This is a nice little view that allows you to change those point assignments with a table view. So again, a utility that helps you kind of edit those CAF files without having to do that within CCT, using EasyCAF, which has some additional workflow improvements to it. And then the last thing I wanted to kind of show you is, let's go to browser, our map successor. Anybody familiar with our map gateway, which is the device that interfaces our equipment controllers to your CCT? It's going end of life. I think we've announced its discontinuation, and this is its successor. It's called our CW CVT. So it's much smaller, more lightweight. What it does is it converts MSTP, so it plugs into your BACnet MSTP controller, whether it be PCG, PCA, PCV, or newer generation like CVMs or CGMs, and then it provides a little Wi-Fi hotspot. So it gets its power from that device. It's got a built-in color LCD display. So if I power this up, I don't have enough power here. Let's see if I can. You're going to have that at the booth? Yeah, let's show it at the booth. But it has a little LCD display that shows you the device ID. So the SSID for the wireless hotspot, the temporary password that you can use, and then you plug that into your laptop's network configuration. Then you can open up a web page and it'll show you the connection information. You can change the password from that screen. It also provides you with a nice view of all the BACnet MSTP diagnostics. So it's kind of like a little mini BACnet network troubleshooter. What that will then do is allow you to then download applications from either CCT or APLT from your laptop to your equipment controllers using this device over Wi-Fi. It also has an embedded Bluetooth interface, which is for a future mobile app. So a lot of the features that were in the map that provide you with some commissioning workflows or installation workflows, those will be succeeded with a mobile app. So there'll be a connection between your phone to this with a Bluetooth, and you'll be able to connect to those controllers with your phone and do checkout, box flow test, those kinds of commissioning workflows coming later. So that's it.
When is it coming?
The mobile app will be, we're still working on development. So, but this is available right now. This is available in shipping and can be used as that, kind of like that converter between your CCT tool and the controllers.
Thank you. Any questions?
CW CVT.
Does that only work on MSTP or does it work on the SA bus also?
Both, FC bus and SA bus.
Okay.
So you could plug it in like, or yeah, you can plug it into like the wall sensor port. Yep.
Great, thank you. So this next vendor is a group that you guys deal with probably on a day-to-day basis with your technical issues, support, discovery of problems, or whatever it may be. Cochrane Tech Services team is our next vendor. We have Aaron Rickel here, our project manager for the Tech Services team, going to show you the era of our new Cochrane Tech Services. They have made updates for your ticketing and support experience, along with some new tools for you guys to go and implement on your jobs to help you save time. Thank you, Aaron. It's all yours.
Yeah, thank you. All right, sounds like I'm mic'd up. So yeah, my name is Aaron Rickel. I am the project manager now for Cochrane Tech Services, which means a lot of things, I guess, for us, as many of us, many of our positions are in tech services. But I'm basically kind of trying to lead what our guys are doing with their time and their development and other projects and things like that. Let's see here. I'll give, I guess, not everybody is probably a customer of ours. I know we have vendors in here and things like that, but, this is primarily for, our customers and the services that we're providing them and some updates that we've got coming for you. So, in case you're not familiar, Cochrane Tech Services, we provide software and hardware technical support for all of our vendors, smart building platforms, the software for them, controllers and smart controller hardware support and things like that. And we also have a few developers on staff, so we do custom programming and development for various open frameworks for our vendors. Of course, especially the Niagara framework is our big one. That's our number one product that we're supporting per usual. And we do some product development as well. Within our means, we're a small team, but we've helped with development of products for various customers, and we've been trying to develop some of our own in recent years, as I'm sure many of you are familiar. Let me back up, I should say. But Cochrane Supply has been expanding a lot and growing our customer base, our branches and our reach across the United States, really. With that has come, more customers, more vendors, more products, and more, needs for support and things like that from our customers and from us. So I wanted to talk about, maybe pull back the curtain a little bit on our tech support operations, show you how we've been improving some things, show you some new things that we've got in the works, in order to kind of keep up with the demand that we've had and keep up with our mission of making our customers successful. So anyhow, here's, I guess, our current lineup in tech services. We do have some new additions that we had to, we needed to beef up a little bit in support and things like that. So, we have Mike Mitchell, CTO, myself, and Ed is now our technical support manager. So he's kind of overseeing all of those operations that are to do with support. He's the person you can go to for escalation and other things like that now. We have Thomas Gann. He's our developer. Does a lot of Java development. He does C# development. He can do whatever, really, but he's been doing a lot of our Niagara 4 development lately. And new hire is Brad Crow. Brad is based out of Montana, actually. We hired him as full-time support, so that's his primary job. He's looking at the tickets just about every day, and is going to be helping with a lot of our efforts going forward on kind of maintaining that website and the things that we have on offer there. Abe is from our recent Dallas acquisition. We have a whole new branch down in Dallas, Texas that came with a full veteran. Oh, yeah, I'm still here. He is a senior building automation specialist. He's been helping the customers in that region for a very long time. And he's also, joined our team to help do technical support and things like that from time to time. And then there's our instructor staff. So Kevin Crable, I'm sure you're familiar with. They're all doing training, but they also help us out in technical support when they have the time to do so. So same for George Thomas. And then the new hire is Scott Zamarco. He's down in Georgia, I believe, currently. He's full remote, but he's also helping with class development. He's all around the country teaching and stuff as well with the rest of them. But it has been nice having the increased help. You know, I think at the beginning of last year, we were kind of down to usually just myself, Ed, and Thomas, and 2 busy trainers. But more trainers now, more support help. It's been a bit easier there. So that's you know, the first thing that we tried to address there. I guess I jumped to this slide a little bit early too. Don't read it all yet. But in tech support, so some stats, you know, we've been doing a lot of data logging and things like that and trying to figure out, you know, get a grasp on what all we need to keep up with. But, you know, we usually look at about 12 to 20 new tickets every day from our customers. And then combine that with issues that are not new, we're usually working on 20 to 30 cases every day. We dedicate a couple of people to that every day. But it still can be pretty tough to keep up with, especially if we want to get more personal with you guys and be on the phone more and things like that. It's tough, so we've been trying to figure out some ways of you know, freeing up their time and helping with that. So I'll start with like on the, I guess for us on the operator side of things. You know, this year we started implementing a lot of improvements that help us out on our side of things. So we're monitoring our first response times now. We're trying to make sure that if you open a ticket, you hear from somebody within an hour. We're tagging all of our tickets so that we can trend, you know, if there's kind of issues with certain products or certain kinds of issues are jumping up and becoming more frequent, we can kind of target those and try to let you guys know about solutions. We've linked all of our organization data with Cochrane Supply, so we do have a lot of new employees. They're not familiar with all of you. They're not familiar who's a new customer, who's not, what you guys buy or whatnot. So we've got that all linked up now, and we can you know, access that data on the fly, and that helps out the operators there. We can upload big files now. We couldn't do that very easily before, but some of our vendors have been pushing out software that is a lot larger than recent years, and we finally caught up to be able to kind of support that there. Same thing for downloading those large files as well. We've had issues, but we've resolved all those. And we can effectively now, we haven't been able to search our database in a while because it was rough on our software because, yeah, we have 40,000 plus tickets in our database, which contains over 300,000 messages. So it's a lot of data to parse through, and we're trying to see if maybe, you know, we had a past solution. Now we can do that. So, you know, that's on our side of things. But on your side of things, you know, I've been trying to think about, yeah, we want to free up more of our operators' time so we can, you know, get more targeted, timely solutions to you, spend more time with you. But then also, you know, we have a lot of content on our website. How can we get that to you? How can we surface that better? You know, our current website has a lot of stuff on it. It's kind of hard to find unless you already know what you're after. You're not really aware of what else might be there. And creating more content as we get more and more vendors has been a challenge. You know, what's the strategy? We got new employees. We got to make sure everybody's on the same page. And then how can we effectively deliver more timely information and news? We used to send out massive emails to people, but we didn't have a good way of, if you didn't want to receive those emails, we didn't really have a way of letting you do that. So, you know, we're trying to make improvements in that regard as well. So, how are we doing that? This past weekend, we completed a migration to, we kind of moved our support site off of IIS, and we moved into a Ubuntu Apache environment. And just doing that with our specific software led to over 100% page load speed increase. So now if you're using our website, it moves over twice as fast as it used to. It's easier to get around. And I can show you that in a bit here. And we're working on a theme refresh as well. That's got a cool nav tree. You can kind of easily see everything that we've got, jump around much faster. And we want to do some new kinds of articles, you know, start cataloging error messages, common issues, so that you can search through them and more easily find solutions. And you might have seen some stuff on our profiles and things like that on our website currently for subscribing to our tech letter and tech alerts, which is going to be email newsletters that you can freely, subscribe to or not. With the alerts being, timely, if a vendor puts out a new product release has just, been made available on our website, or there is a massive cybersecurity, issue that's happening with something or other, that'll be a way for us to deliver that when it happens. And then tech letter will be kind of like a monthly newsletter that will summarize all of that if you don't want that many emails. But, sorry, backing up a bit on that support site. So this is our current site that we have had for a while. It's looked the same for a long time. It is easier to kind of jump around and do things like that now, but this is the theme refresh that we've been doing a lot of work on. So, the biggest thing is just a new navigation for it, right? So, been trying to reorganize our content for one. So instead of having split downloads, knowledge base, things, everything's just going to be by vendors. So if you are after Vicon N4 Supervisor, expand Vicon, find N4 Supervisor, and then list of all the builds and stuff that we have there. So, and then we're working on ways of, making these lists not so targeted. So we'll put, all of the latest and newest supported builds on there, and then we'll have an archive of other stuff. But, much easier to jump around, find information on certain things if you need on Honeywell AX Wizards and stuff. So it'll be easier to browse all of these things, jump around, find them, faster to download them. So it should be a better experience overall. Should be, I know a lot of people don't even log into the website a lot and they just email us, but hopefully this will kind of entice you to jump on there and check it out some more. And yeah, this is in the works. This is about ready. We just need to do a few more things to it, make it work with our dark theme, and then we'll have this out and available to you guys. So, yeah, and that's probably I'll keep it moving along. But yeah, you can look forward to that in the coming probably couple weeks, really. Let's see if I can jump back. Cool. And let me make sure that I didn't totally skip over anything that I probably wanted to say there. But cool. Yeah, so there's that. So moving on to kind of our development efforts and things like that. We are here to support you guys, help make you guys successful. So we've been trying to think of a lot of new ways for applying our development talent towards helping you guys do your jobs for various things. So the first thing that we've been working on this year is we're calling it the CTS Toolkit for N4. It's a free module. And we've got a lot of different ideas of things to put in this module. The idea for it is that it's not stuff that you got to put in your station that you have to deploy in production. It's more tools that help you get the job done, use Workbench more, troubleshoot different errors and things like that. So, so some of the first things that we've got on there is we have an algorithm inspector, and I'll show these in a second here. But an algorithm inspector to help you map out all of the outputs of a given algorithm. If you're using Niagara Analytics, sometimes it can be pretty ambiguous. If you make a big algorithm and then you go, all right, show me what I made, and then it doesn't look like what you wanted it to, it can be challenging to go through and figure out where the hole in the cracks are. But we've got a tool to help with that. We have a bog file editor, so it's a view on station bog files that you can browse stations without needing all the modules. It can tell you which modules you're missing. It'll let you modify that station right there without having to do all the guesswork. And a PEM file tool to help make it easier to assemble full chain of trust certificates to load into Niagara stations, or really anything that might need a full chain of trust. And I can show you some of that today. So first up, I had issues getting a demo algorithm with enough data that was worthwhile showing, but our algorithm inspector looks a little something like this, and it looks wild, but it's kind of what you need for these algorithms. But the idea is that every column in here will represent one of the blocks in your algorithm. And analytics kind of works off of timestamps. It normalizes everything to 15 minutes. And then it kind of steps through that data from your data source block at that timestamp, which might be linked into a math block, and then what was that outputting at that timestamp. And you can follow through and see where something might not have went the way you expected, and you can see what that algorithm block was actually outputting, and better understand what you're working with there. So, so that's the first thing that we have. Yeah, we've worked a lot with Kevin Mamajek on some analytics issues, and that was made in direct response to some of our frustrations trying to understand what we were looking at, and it's been helpful. So the other thing, the next thing I should say, a lot of people, it's still challenging to put together certificates. A lot of times, especially if you're doing publicly trusted certificates, you send it off to a public CA. They spit a bunch of files back out to you, which are never in the format that you need it for in Niagara. And then you kind of have to go through and try to understand assembling a chain of trust and put together a PEM file in the right order, and then pray that when you import it, you get a green check mark and your station starts. But so normally what we would do in Niagara, they have this PEM file view, and you can look at the contents of certificates, and if you're good enough at parsing out the information, you can see that, like, okay, this is, for example, our smartbuildingdesign.com cert. It was issued by GoDaddy Certificate Authority G2, which is probably an intermediate CA, and that's all I've got. And I would need to assemble a full chain of trust from there. So what we have is it's a new view on it. It's just called the PEM tool view. I apologize if it's hard to see on here. But it lets you load in files, right? So you can say, well, here's exactly what I got from GoDaddy. They gave me a CRT, a PEM file, and another CRT of CAs. And you can kind of just drag and drop all of those in there, dump them in there, and it will let you kind of see information on those, and then let you build a PEM out of it. So if I hit build PEM, it'll take all of that, assemble a chain of trust for you that you can kind of observe, from subject to issuer to subject to issuer. If this wasn't successful, it would tell you that this is not a full chain of trust, and try to give you some tips on what you might be missing there, like if you're missing a root CA or something like that. But yeah, from there you just hit save, pick where you want it to dump it out, and it'll dump out a PEM file for you. And I got another example too of one that had kind of a lot of individual certificates, actually 2 different sets of them. And again, there's all the info on it. There's private keys in there. There's root certificates. There's all kinds of stuff. And if you hit build PEM on it, it'll kind of try and assemble as many chains of trust as it can out of what it was given. And you can kind of thumb through the options there and go, it's probably this one, or if I wanted to include the private key, it probably would have been this one. And again, then you can save it out and use that. So hopefully that helps a lot with people who struggle with that. And again, the intention is that, if you just have this module in your workbench, it's, hopefully this will become the kind of thing that becomes second nature. You're just kind of expecting, oh, I'm working with a certificate. Well, I know that I have this view on it to help me out with this right here. Cool. So there is, that is a PEM file tool. And then, another big one is like, you've received a station backup. You do not have all the modules for it. You go to try to transfer it. It says, hey, you're missing this module. You got to look through the error, can't load this module. You go and get that module. You restart Workbench, you try it again. It tells you need a different module this time. You find that one, you restart Workbench, yada, yada. So that's been a frustrating pain point. It's something that comes up all the time with us in technical support. So what we've got here is on that same bog file, which I can't sync to right now on my nav tree. But we have a different view on it called the bog editor view. So even if you cannot, just double click on it and render it in Workbench, there's a different view that you can always use, bog editor view. It can kind of parse out the station for you. It can't do everything. It can only do, I guess, kind of what's actually included in a bog file. A lot of times if components are at their defaults, default slots and things like that aren't actually stored in your bog file because to save on space. So it shows you what it can see. And then it has this module analysis thing that can tell you, here's all the modules that are used in here, and it will highlight stuff that you might be missing. So I'm seeing IBM SN2, IFC iNet, iSoft AB, a bunch of MaxLine drivers. So expanding that, it can kind of tell you where in the station those things are. And then I can do stuff like, let's see, there is a N2 network. And say you didn't want this in here, there is a little trash can icon right here, and I could dump that out of that bog entirely and then save it as a new copy of that bog. So if sometimes there's stuff in stations that you don't even care about, it's got some old thing in it that you don't use anymore, but you can't find the module. This lets you go in there, find it, remove it from the station if you want to, save that as a copy, and then try to load that one. So, our operators are already using this to help customers, just to make things easier instead of before we were opening up XML for bog files and text editors and doing find and replaces and things like that. So this has been really helpful, and we're still improving on it a little bit. We're going to have some stuff so that you can more easily say, just delete everything from this module out of here. I understand the risk, yada, yada. And then, just to make that a little bit easier. So yeah, that's the third thing that we have there. These are all stuff that, it's all in beta right now, so if you want to try any of this stuff, all you have to do is ask us in support. We'll get it over to you. You can try it out, because we need more people to test all these features, honestly. And then we've got some more stuff planned too. Man, I can't. Oh yeah, it is. I'm down to 10 minutes right now, aren't I? So, more ideas for that. And really just more ideas for things to help you guys out in general. And this could be something that, we have our own meetings and we throw around all of our ideas and see what we maybe want to start working on with next when we're ready to start development on something new. But we've got ideas for stuff like, creating a module database web page that you guys could go to where we can very easily dump Niagara modules and have it parse out what the versions are, what their dependencies are, what their sign dates are, and all that fun stuff. And then let you guys search through them and grab what you need, grab its dependencies. History maintenance tools have been something we wanted to make for a really long time, something that helps you prune bad records from histories or merge histories together or do all kinds of stuff that I know Tridium probably doesn't want you to do all the time with history data, but we'll try to make it flag stuff as modified so people aren't fudging their data. But tools to help with that. Hierarchy library, I know hierarchies are still, a lot of people still struggle with them, but we'd like to put together, a big list of common ones with explanations for it so that you can more easily, implement them on your own stations. Sample data generator, if you're working with analytics especially or anything, sometimes it's helpful to have a few years of data formatted in what units you want and within what ranges and things like that. You've got ideas for station audit view, something that can kind of just search your entire station for a variety of common misconfigurations or recommendations and things like that. And a software viewer, kind of like a software manager for your local host, but one that you can use on your local host and have you tell you not just the versions of the software you have loaded, but again, it's the expiration dates on them and things like that, so you can compare it to your license and the dependencies, so on and so forth. That's a few of those. And I'll jump over to product development. So, of course, ongoing updates to a lot of our current products as well. N4 Pass is something that has taken off for us a bit in the last year. We still have a lot of improvements that we want to do to it. So, as far as especially stuff like backup offerings and things like that, and more certifications and things like that are necessary for a lot of different sites. Our high charge driver is it's always been around, but it does need to kind of get updated for a lot of high charts features. It's a pretty powerful tool and charting tool where even in just this one module, you can do some stuff that is that would normally take analytics to really implement within the Niagara framework, but it's an easier way of say putting last year's data versus this year's data on a single graph. You can do stuff like that with that driver very easily, and you can customize the crap out of it. So just every color of every thing and background color or whatever you want, style of chart. It's got pie charts. It's got anything possible really. It's pretty powerful module. So H24, which you'll hear about very soon here, and then we'd also like to improve Workplace Launcher. It's a very popular tool of ours, used by many people. We haven't really had a big update for it in recent, I don't know, years. But we've got lots of ideas for that. And then new ideas for products, again, something we throw around, something that we're always looking for feedback on what people might really be interested in. But ideas for various PX widgets, like labels that can fully utilize CSS in browsers and do things like rounded corners and box shadows and all kinds of other stuff. We've got ideas for navigation menus that auto-populate off of hierarchies or nav files. Tables of data that you can populate via query, but then choose if you want it to show live data or not. And then we got ideas for simple search widget as well that can kind of do some translation for people so that they don't have to know BQL or NQL query languages to search for a point named X. And then we've been throwing around an idea for a theme builder for a long time. You can do lots of stuff with themes in Niagara 4, but not a lot of people utilize them because you got to build a module. But you can totally change the look of it and can really help with integration on jobs. And then a 365 mail driver in addition to, we have a Google Calendar driver currently. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything there, but I don't know. That's a lot of the ideas and stuff that we've got thrown around for helping you guys out and starting to think about doing new products and things like that. We're always looking for feedback on them. So please reach out, and I'm sure too if you're on our our tech letter and things like that, it's probably going to be something that we utilize to gather feedback from you all on where we go next. But yeah, support site refresh coming in a couple weeks. Those newsletters should be showing up soon after that. And just ask us about that CTS toolkit for N4 if you're interested. Again, it's always available, and we'll have a more formal launch of that in a couple months or so once it's all kind of polished up. So, and that is that. I used a lot more time than I thought I would, but I guess I wrote a lot.
Questions? I know I have a question. So I'll be the first one. So I noticed in your file downloads you had a lot of AX files in there, and we all know we're in the final phases of AX being end of life. So how long will we be able to continue to help our customers support those AX sites?
I think our motto has always been that we're going to try to help you no matter what, but that doesn't mean that we're going to be able to get support from vendors and things like that if they're already out of date. So we would like to kind of have a good archive of a lot of old software for when people go to an old job, they need to get connected to it to get whatever out of it. That's also been a struggle for us to kind of, where do we upload all that stuff and do all that? But I think after we get this new refresh going, it's going to be easier for us to kind of just start archiving a lot of different old builds and stuff to make it easy for you guys to find.
Right. And we'll be supporting that ourselves, right? At Tritium, you guys are completely done supporting Niagara after July 1st, or AX?
Yeah, we don't ask anymore.
Yeah, or already. All right, any other questions? We have a mic.
For the modules, do we just go to the support site, or we just reach out to our salesperson for downloading them?
Yeah, just reach out to the support site. So registration's free on that site as well. So if you don't have an account already, you just register or just email support@cochranetechservices.com.
Yeah, they have 3 ways to contact them. On cochranetechservices.com under support, you self-register. You go in, put your information. It'll send you an email, make sure you are who you are, and then you're in. You can put in a ticket there, view all your closed tickets, share them with coworkers, anything like that. You can email them or give them a call. If you ever need help escalating anything, you could always call, ask the person answering the phones that, hey, I'm in an emergency, I have a mess, I need someone ASAP. Or you can call your sales representative, they can help you. Or if you're planning a trip where you gotta go 5 hours away and you know you're gonna be there tomorrow, and you can pre-schedule your support. So, that way you're going to get the support you need when you go out there. So.
Yes.
No problem. No problem. I just want to remember that we all know the rules of engagement. We all have a lot going on, and it is always our goal to make our customers successful. So communicating the way and the best ways to communicate with us is always important. Are there any other questions? Great, thank you, Aaron. Presenting today, we have Ryan Houston from Optigo Networks. Ryan, I'm sorry, I totally flaked on your title, but Ryan, come on up, it'll be all yours. What is your title?
We'll call it sales.
Sales. He is my go-to. That's what I'm going to call him. His title is Nicole's go-to. Thank you.
Practical sales, something like that. And I'm about to do what you're never supposed to do, is live demos. But we're going to trust the Wi-Fi, and we're going to make this work. All right. Perfect. Of course. All right. Welcome. My name is Ryan Houston with Optigo Networks. So today I'm going to give you two demos. Thank you, Nicole, for the introduction. One is called Optigo OneView. This is the software management that comes with our OT networking gear. So this piece of management allows you to view all of your switches, all of your ports, all of your IP addressing, all in one spot. It also allows you to do the setup and the maintenance and the review and any troubleshooting within the same OT network environment. So the power that you have in this tool is you can be trained. All of your staff can be trained within half a day on how to use this tool. And then anybody can go out to site and work on it, right? And there's a huge advantage with that. You're not stuck with the Cisco guy or the Dell guy or the Linksys guy. It's any one of your staff can work on this component. One of the biggest things that I really want to show here is some of the time savings aspects that are created within the software. We all know it's challenging to deal with IP address assignment, right? Who here has gone through a spreadsheet and manually created 500 or 1,000 line entries for your job? Try and get it right with no mistakes and set it up saying, I'm going to put in this static IP address with this MAC address. And that effort takes weeks worth of work just to hopefully you get it right. And then you've got to take all that data and get it into the controller somehow, right? And then you've got to make sure that's saved and it's set up and working. The days of static IP addressing are challenging. If you've made a network that's too small, what do we have to do? Redo it all. All that work goes out the window so you can make it bigger. There's a lot of challenges that go with it. So one of the key aspects that we do here is we've added a router functionality within this. So what we could do inside of that is say, I'm going to go create a new VLAN, right? And we can call it HVAC because we're boring. And we're going to call it a VLAN ID, and we'll make it red. And you can name it whatever you want. Now, once we've done this, we can choose how many IP addresses do you want. So I'm eliminating the need for /22, /24, all of this information that you probably know, but you only do it every so often, so you don't remember it every single time. So we're going to create a VLAN with 256 IP addresses in it, right? Small little network, air handler, a couple air handlers, 40, 50 VAV boxes, no big deal. We can automatically assign the IP address. If you have any static devices like a server or something else you want to add, or maybe something came hard-coded with an IP address, you could deal with it that way. But outside of that, once we do this, we hit save. And we can't do it because anyways, aside from that, what it's going to do is it's going to go through the entire system, every single switch and every single port that's out there, and it's going to apply this VLAN to it. So instead of logging into each switch individually, this is automatically applied. Now, the fun part about that is once we go back to our ports, we can go select, say I'm going to take this one here, and I'm going to go select that's because I already had a VLAN. I'm going to go select all the ports in that on the VLAN that we just created, and now they're set. So every time I plug in a device or a string of daisy chain IP devices into this, they're already getting IP addresses that are set from this system. Okay, so no more spreadsheet, but we're not fully there yet. So now when we come along and say, it's great that I have all of these IP addresses set to my controllers, what happens when I lose power? How does it regain that IP address that was set? Well, in here, you can see that the devices are getting an IP address assignment. Now that once I have them all plugged in and communicating, I'm going to hit one-click reserve, and it's going to lock that IP address that it was dynamically assigned to the MAC address of the connected device. So now I can unplug it, replug it, power it off, change it. It's always going to get the same IP address. Now, I know we want spreadsheets for our documentation. Now that we have everything connected and up and running, I'm going to export this list. So now we can export it from a live connected system where everything is true, there's no duplicates, there's nothing missing, and you put that inside your job documentation. Right? How much time did I just save you? Weeks? Days at least. Right? Huge time savings. So that's a major feature that we have in here. The next component that sits here we are doing we're doing a little bit of protective cybersecurity pieces. When you create that VLAN, we don't automatically give it access to the internet, right? We turn it off. When you're ready, and say sometimes you need access to the internet, sometimes you don't. VAV doesn't always need access to the internet, it needs access to the server. Server needs access to the internet. So we can really define it and turn off the parts of connectivity that aren't required. Now, if we go a little bit more crazy and say that we want to get some information from this other VLAN that exists over here, now I want to connect it to my HVAC VLAN, maybe lighting as an occupancy sensor coming into HVAC or vice versa. This is where we have something called inter-VLAN routing. Because if I want to get that piece of data across, there are ways to do it. You can use APIs, you can use pub sub services. There's things out there, but they can be complicated. And they require going typically out of the building and coming back in. We can create inside of this what I like to call an integration VLAN. So we create a third VLAN where the other two VLANs connect into it. So the HVAC VLAN and the lighting VLAN can't see each other. We want to do that for security reasons, but they can both see this integration VLAN. And that's how you do the data exchange. Right, so it's a way that you can keep everything protected and isolated, but still get the job done, which is a big component. Now, everybody out there, they constantly talk about security, right? Everything we need to do is all around security. So we also created another feature here where we can, with a single action, we call it one-click secure, and we go through every single switch, every single port, and we turn off every port that doesn't have a device connected to it, so it's dead. So if anybody comes in with a laptop or any device and tries to plug it into the port, it will not work. Secondly, any single device that is plugged into the switch, we lock it. So we take that MAC address of that device and lock it to that port in the switch. So you can't unplug it, plug in your laptop, and gain connectivity. That port is now destined for that device until you change it. There's one more feature here. It's called Secure Multi-Device ports. And this is a specific feature that we added a couple years ago for the daisy chain IP devices, right? If you ever talk with IT, they want one device per one port. Well, that's a lot of expense in switches just to connect your VAV boxes. So what we do now is we take all 25 or 30 of your daisy chain IP devices, and we secure all of those MAC addresses to the one port. So you don't have to worry about them, which means all of those devices, think of the Cypers, if you, any Honeywell guys, that have a 4-port switch in them, we can block all of those ports from having any communication all the way back up in your OT network, right, all the way down the line. And that really, honestly, is simple click, and it runs through the entire system. So you can come into a job, you can unlock the system, work on it, and then relock it before you go home. And it doesn't always have to be the entire system. It can be, you can lock and unlock a switch or lock and unlock a port. So depending on how you want to do the job or what stage you're in, this is a very, very helpful tool. So no one can muck with your system that you painstakingly put in and are trying to make it work. And those are just some of the quick features that I wanted to show you that really have a lot of benefit to your job in terms of time savings and adding that security component. So I'm going to move on now to the next piece of software. Are there any questions in this one? Yes. Yeah, and that's a good question because every switch that we automatically deploy, and we do a plug-and-play deployment, spanning tree is already enabled. And we enable them in pairs, port 1, 2, port 3, 4. So when you do your loop, you just have to connect it in that fashion, and it's off and running without any further configuration. All right, I'm going to move on.
Sorry, it just occurred to me, I just saw SFP up there. What's the compatibility with do you lock down SFP modules specifically for your equipment, or any SFP modules are compatible?
Depending on the application, so in our PON fiber splitting technology, then those ones are very specific to us because they are PON SFP. But in a hybrid model, it's much more flexible. We can use usually what's off the shelf. We do offer something specific that we've tested with, so we know it works, but odds are it'll work with others. All right. Okay, this is Visual BACnet. For those of you that don't know what it is, Visual BACnet takes Wireshark data of BACnet traffic, and we analyze it in the cloud, sometimes in an on-prem environment as well. What it really looks for is how BACnet is being applied, right? And that's an important statement. It means that if you have a site that you've been working on for years, you put in the first round of controllers 10 or 15 years ago, you do a new update, you add another wing with some next level devices, some IP-based devices with a lot better processing, and then you've still got the same analytics tools or different things like AI engines out there. There's a lot of different things that want your data, but you want to pull it as fast as possible. Someone says, I'm going to put in this new AI engine, BrainBox or somebody else, and we're going to pull data. I want every piece of data every 5 seconds from your entire site. Well, I guarantee you it's not going to work. It'll work on some of the controllers, no question. Those legacy controllers are going to give up the ghost. They're going to fall apart, and your network's going to be slow, and you're going to really struggle with keeping things online. And that's all because the way BACnet was applied, right? Retrofit environments are a big factor of this, or sites that grow. You started your very first job with 100 controllers in it. Now it's got 2,000 devices in it. Can you log in the same way? Do you have to have a different BBMD architecture? And we look and we identify all of these issues so that when you make these changes, your site's not getting worse and worse. We just say, hey, wait, this controller can't keep up. Why don't we look at upgrading it first? And this applies to so many more pieces, whether you're pulling data too hard, whether we're having routers that are 15 years old that maybe should be upgraded to something new, whether the graphics are slow. We can identify the path of why that's being slow. And I want to show a feature here. This is something that we have called PreCheck. You'll know that you're at a PreCheck site because it's highlighted red. And what that allows you to do is build this into part of your process before you give me money, is really the intent. It allows you to make sure that you get the Wireshark file full of backnet traffic and upload it here. And when you do that, it's going to show you a network health score. This allows you to determine what you want to do next. If you upload a file and it's 95%, you can say, I've done a good job. I don't have to do anything here. I'm just going to get a little report, slip it in the job book, and I can move on from this part. However, if you come into a file like this one and it says 17%, it's either going to match some of the frustrations you've already had on the job, or you're going to learn a whole lot of new things that you never knew before. Now, we love the controls game, and the finger gets pointed every single direction, but more importantly, yours. Right? It's always the controls guy's fault, even if the electrician wired the VFD backwards. It's still your fault for some reason. So this allows you to get this information, and you can either sign up to the service, to the Visual BACnet service, get a deeper look at the file and start fixing it, or you could take it to your customer and says, I've got something that we can do here. I'm going to need a little bit more money from you, and I'll make sure to take care of this. But either way, the software is there to protect your investment and what you're doing. So the way that we normally present this type of data is in all of your jobs, when you're coming close to the end of the job, just get that file and take a look. How good of a job did you do? Is there some sort of piece of integration that's being a pain? Right? Maybe you're asking to write to a point that doesn't exist. Maybe the firmware needs to be updated. Anything could happen, but you're not guessing. You're actually getting the truth and saying, I see where the problem is, I can fix it. And it took you less than an hour instead of struggling on the phone, talking to management, talking to support, escalating it through the vendors. Right? It becomes challenging and timely. Right? How long does it take to get a normal BACnet support question? You know, hopefully you can do it within your local company, and then it moves up to, say, a Distech or a Delta or Honeywell, and then it goes up into their support ticketing system. Well, meanwhile, you're on site, and all you want to do is get it fixed. So this is how we take this information and climb it. And I encourage you, on every single job you do, just get the Wireshark file. You never know what good it's going to do for you later. And if you put it in here and the score is great, then you can move on. But think about this. You've closed out the job, score's perfect. Now you're in the warranty period. Customer calls you up and says, hey, I've got a problem. Okay, great. Let's go to site. Let's get another file and compare it to the way I left the job. File comes back at 50%, but no controllers are offline. Okay, hang on. Let's back up here. Let's take a look. Let's go see what had failed. And you can compare it to where you left it to where it is now. Now you are in control of determining, is that warranty work, or is that something they can pay to get fixed? Right? We all know that margins are tight on these jobs, and any way that you can keep it in your pocket is advantageous. So through the warranty period, you can take this software and protect yourself. Maybe it is something that fell apart, but at least now you know exactly what it is, how to fix it, what to replace, and quickly get on that job and get off. Now we enter the service portion. Warranty period's over. I want to do a service contract. We all know that's where the money is in the service departments. So I want to sign a customer up for 1 year or annual recurring or 3-year service contract, whichever you provide. And this is another component where you can add the Visual BACnet service into that contract to enhance the value of the contract and to make sure that that 95% that you started that job with keeps it there for the next, as long as you have that service contract. BACnet networks are like anything else. They have to be maintained. And in many cases, the reality is you may not be the only one on site. There could be a guy in a van poking around. There could be someone else. There could be other contractors that are already using Visual BACnet to provide service. So you want to make sure that you have the same capabilities in order to provide a much better level of service. I've seen it before. MSTP devices, you know, the wire backs out a little bit. Someone pulled the tab off one of the Ethernet wires, it goes offline, right? We're adding another piece of analytics software to a site and it's pulling on data too hard. Anything happens, especially in a multi-vendor site or a very active site. These things are, I wouldn't say notorious for breaking, but there's enough change and enough people that don't always understand the change that they're making and can have major impacts on these sites. Got to remember, you guys are paid for doing your portion of a job. It's not really your responsibility to look at the job as a whole, because you're not paid to do it in most cases, but you can be paid to be in that customer's right-hand pocket and say, you know what, I saw a change here. It's not really our product, but I got a guy on staff that knows how to work with it. Let's come and fix it. Now, for you sales guys out there, you can use Visual BACnet using this pre-check audit feature to go get new customers. Because you're not going in with someone else's product. You're not going in with a Distech tool or something else into a JCI site. You're going in with the third-party agnostic, vendor-agnostic tool just to get a lay of the land. Say, hey, Mr. Customer, I'm going to come in and do an audit. Let's go take a look and see what you need. And next thing you know, you've taken a customer away from your competition because you have something they don't. Right? And that can be very, very powerful. How much time do we have there, Nicole?
About 4 or 5 minutes for your piece.
Okay. Do we have any questions around this?
Hey Ryan, this is Abe.
Hi.
On the intraLAN VLAN routing, can you explain a little bit like the components that are needed? Do you still need that the other router?
Yeah, so the intra-VLAN routing is a layer 3 component which is run by the MikroTik router itself. So outside of that, everything that you saw in the software component is leveraging what's in the router already. So we're setting up and we're writing back to the router to be able to handle that traffic. So that's really all you need. Once you've got the router in place, it's just configuration. Yeah.
All right. So, are you seeing a lot of contractors running their own fiber for the optical side of things, or are they using pre-built?
I've seen both. Some people will run with a lot of pre-terminated fiber based on guesstimated lengths. Other times they'll get a subcontractor in there. So both is very viable. If you've run your own Cat5, Cat6 cable, I mean, fiber is no different, especially if you get pre-terminated ends.
This is a hardware and a software solution kind of mixed with one, kind of like a Cisco Meraki setup then?
It would be, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. But the real design of this is using it or showing you in a way that you're used to seeing.
Can you show
Right.
an architecture? Do you have any sample drawings for a riser?
I don't have at the moment.
No. $1 million for me. You know that answer.
So honestly, there's a network, the OneView management switch, which is NC600 is what we call it, and any amount of switches you need, and that's it. So the head end does carry a certain cost. So you may spend a little bit more. So using the head-end solution with the single switch may have a bigger cost. But if you have plans to add more switches all the way down the line in the same building, then it makes sense. And it's just where the cost is allocated. Usually we say if you're over 3 switches, it's time to do something. Because those 3 switches are going to require manual configuration to set up. We definitely don't want to go unmanaged switches because that's painful. It's not painful. It will become painful at some point. So starting there and then building out is where you want to go.
That's a good point. You were saying three managed switches or more in your building. We should really look at the Optigo platform with the aggregation abilities.
Right. Depending on what your growth is.
Right, right. If you know you're going to be growing into 50, 60 right off the rip, you might as well just start with it.
That's right. And in every case, even if you put in the first couple switches, you can always add the aggregation switch after. You have to do a bit of recommissioning, but you can bring it in at a later date.
Yeah, and that's a good point too. Your edge switches can be all standalone.
It can be, yeah, until you get to a point where you want to connect them together.
Yeah. So between, oh, go ahead. Oh, Melissa, up here? I'm pretty loud. Oh, okay.
Where have you seen IT departments potentially reject or like have issues with them accepting your product as part of their infrastructure?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's something we deal with all the time. In the industry, we see it about half and half. Sometimes IT wants to know everything that you're putting on their network, and other times they want nothing to do with the HVAC side. They want it completely separated. And I'm sure a lot of you can echo that as well. One of the arguments that I make when IT wants to bring it all in, I don't have a problem with that, but then I hit them with, I want a service level agreement of 15 minutes every time there's an issue. I want to access and have visibility to the ports and the switches. I want to know what's online and what's offline. I want. And in many cases, they can't deliver that. So if you detail that ask right up front and then hit them with, I also have a solution here that I can do this, and you, Mr. IT, can watch everything I'm doing and have my entire OT network wrapped in your security framework. Just let me do my job. And a lot of times we can get through their argument that way.
They say, here's a port to the internet, and that's all you care about.
That's right, and that's all you want. You want one port, one connection to the internet or their IT department or their IT services, and leave the rest to us.
Any other questions? Great, thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
ASI Controls is our next vendor coming up. We have James Poston presenting for us. ASI Controls, if you're not familiar with them, is a full control line. They have building controllers, field devices, front end, and cloud solutions. So today, James is going to help us go through some of their AutoMagic tools and Niagara to help your programming experience, along with their cloud solutions. James, it's all yours.
Thank you. All right, I know we're all excited to get to lunch here, so I'll try not to take too much of your time. The whole point of this presentation, obviously, is to show that we've got tools available for you guys to use with our equipment that makes your job easier. What is for lunch, by the way? All sorts of stuff? I need a motivator, man. That's what I'm looking forward to. Okay, good. We're up. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to talk about is IntelliTask. IntelliTask is a free tool that ASI Controls offers. It's compatible with our rooftop units. It's compatible with our VAV units. It makes your life easier. So what is IntelliTask? Well, it's like anything. It's an acronym in our business. And it involves testing and balancing alarms and events and commissioning. And it's intelligent. And I say that in quotations because we see a lot recently with AI, ChatGPT, and we're talking about intelligence. It's not really intelligence. You're training it on a model to recognize how to react in the right way. And that's what IntelliTask does. So what it does is basically everything for you with regards to our VAV and rooftop unit controllers. So I'm going to show you, as I describe what it's going to do, we're going to go ahead and create, I'd like to do a live demo, but I wasn't sure if I had internet access here. So I recorded this. We're going to go ahead and create graphics, our prepackaged graphics for these 8 VAVs that you see here. So I'm going to set that off. And so what this is going to do is as this is selecting, I'm selecting all of these VAVs. I'm going to ask it to configure graphics. It's going to create the graphics for all of these VAVs. It's going to add haystack tags for all the points that it imports automatically. And it's going to set up both alarms and trends. So things that are common, zone temp, airflow set points, all that stuff is going to be added automatically. And there you go. So it's already done. So what does that look like, right? Well, the graphics aren't going to be anything that you haven't already seen before, but what's exciting about this is we allow you to replace any of the graphics that we come prepackaged. So this covers all of our personalities for all our VAV controllers, cooling only, multiple levels of heat. All of those are automatically added based on the controller personality, and these views are created. Creates both your main view there, you've got an override screen, you've got a trending screen for all your trends, and then on the wire sheet side, we already go ahead and we organize everything in a reasonable fashion so that way you guys aren't dragging into your wire sheet to set all this stuff up. So things like operating state, occupancy, scheduling, all that is already automatically handled and added to your wire sheet as soon as you create all those graphics, all at the exact same time. And again, this is all customizable, so if you don't like what you see here, we more than allow you to set up your own graphics for each of the personalities for our VAVs to allow you to go into a site and quickly deploy. But not only do we do graphics, we also, what we're trying to help our partners with who sell our equipment is not necessarily needing to crack open their laptop and get out our configuration software. So what we permit within Niagara through IntelliTask is to clone controller configurations completely. So in this example here, again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say that VAV, my first VAV actually has the program. It has all of my set points. It has everything that I need to get going. My other 7 do not. So I'm going in and I'm telling it to select VAV1 as my Rosetta Stone that all the rest of the VAVs should key off of. And what it's going to go through is it's going to pull out that configuration out of that VAV controller, and then it's going to stuff it into every single one of those VAVs. And so you don't even need to have our configuration software expert present on you if you have a controller on site which has a program that you need. And that way it allows you to, again, get in and out quickly, deploy on a site with our equipment without having to muck around too much. So compatibility, this module is compatible with Niagara 4.6 and later. It's BACnet only at this time, so which is fairly common. We do have our own proprietary protocol, but unless you're on a legacy site, we're seeing more and more BACnet adoption. So that was our first task. So the controllers that are supported are 6100 VAV controllers, our rooftop units. At the end of the year, we're going to have support for our fully programmable VAV controller. That's the 6115. And then we have a new rooftop controller coming out, the 8116. That's a fully programmable rooftop unit. And no release date yet for that, but at release, it will be supported as well for IntelliTask. And then we're also adding ASI protocol support for some of our legacy partners that still use our proprietary ASI protocol. And I'll stick here and open up any questions before we move on to the next part. Next part is going to be our cloud solution with hopefully a live demo. Everyone's been doing live demos, so now I'm feeling froggy, so we'll see. And maybe this one will be the one that goes really, really poorly. But any questions? Nope, cool, all right. All right, the next thing I'm going to show you is within our configuration software, and this is something that a lot of our vendors, a lot of our partners have asked before, and that is a remote connectivity to our equipment without IT. In the best case scenario, right, we in the OT area would operate with IT and we'd all get along, right? That never really happens. And that's why you have things like TOSI-Box that requires no IT interaction that you can install on site, right? You don't have to do port forwards or anything like that. So what we're planning on offering here, and this is a very, very beta at this point. This was my boss, Jack Floyd over there, told me I needed to show this thing off because of how cool it was for what we're doing, how exciting it is. And I think it's very exciting. So we'll see how well it works. But what this is a fully integrated remote connectivity solution within Expert that requires no IT interaction. Basically, what we're doing is we're acting in the cloud as a relay service. So anywhere in the world you open your configuration software, it phones home to this cloud. The cloud has a list of sites. We're using MQTT 5.0. That's just the transport layer. We're not actually using anything else within MQTT. Because we're doing more of a server and client certificate authentication similar to BACnet SC. So we looked at MQTT insofar as the best way to reach remote controllers, IoT, but we wanted to beef up security, so we started looking at, well, what's the next step for BACnet, right? BACnet SC, you have a client server certificate authentication scheme, so we decided, you know what, let's stick with that, not reinvent the wheel, keep the standard the same with regards to that. And so because this is a relay service, so on site you're going to need some sort of device that sits on site. Basically, we'll phone home to the Cirrus server and then allow you at any point to open Expert, click a remote project type, and get to that controller. There will be eventually an appliance that will offer that will have the ability to do this, but my favorite is that we offer we'll be offering a Jace module. So it runs on a Jace, runs on a web supervisor, and this is my preference because especially when it comes to not messing around with IT or involving IT. I don't know if anyone's worked on any sites that have intrusion detection, prevention, pain in the butt if you start spitting out communication type that IT is not aware of. You know, in some cases, they'll shut that device down until they can figure out why is it communicating on whatever, right? This solution is great because we're still talking BACnet. So insofar as what IT is concerned, obviously the Jace, the web supervisor is going to be going to the cloud, but what you're seeing coming out of the Jace or a web supervisor is you're seeing just BACnet private transfer. So BACnet private transfer directed at any of our ASI devices and all facilitated through a Jace. So there's no need for an additional piece of equipment that you got to add on site. You got to ask IT to do a MAC listing for. You can load this module into any Jace or WebSoup 4.9 and above, and this thing will automatically connect. And the intent when we fully release this will be a zero interaction from you as well. So server and client certificates will be generated automatically based on users. We're going to have site level visibility, so you can set as a vendor what particular buildings you can see, what particular buildings your employees can see, and have a hierarchical system facilitated through our cloud server on the back end. So I'm going to try to show you guys how this works here. So we're going to switch over to my other machine here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start from fresh. So I've got our configuration software open. This is Expert. I'm going to create a new project. It's going to be a remote project. I'm just going to call it remote. We're going to say remote site. Click OK. Oh, project name already exists. All right. Remote site. There we go. All right. And I'm just going to log in. This is all pre-production, so you won't necessarily see this type of scheme. We just had to come up with some sort of login at the moment. And so now I'm in. I'm going to go ahead and choose my sites. Because I'm an administrator here, I'm going to see basically every single site that's available that we have up and running for this demo or this beta, if it manages to make it out. Hey, it did. Okay, cool. So So up there we have ASI Jace 1. That's going to be my Jace that I was just showing you before. That's in Pleasanton, California. And then the rest of these are locations over the world. So we've got another Jace that's in the Canary Islands in Spain. And then another Jace in the UK, or I'm sorry, another one of our appliances in the UK. But we're going to take a look at the Jace here because I think it has the most devices. And yeah, sure enough, there you go. So there's all my VAVs. So these are on a BACnet network. They're connected to a ASIC 39540. That's our fully programmable controller. The ASIC 39540 is acting as a BACnet IP to MSTP router, and the Jace is now contacting all of those controllers to allow me to talk to any single one of them. So if I click on one, it's going to attempt to connect right now. So it's going to make the connection down through, and it's found it. So it's doing searching, and there you go. So there I am in my 6100. So I don't even need to, with no IT interaction, I didn't need to do anything else other than open my configuration software for wherever I'm at, right? And right now, I don't think I'm even connected to the Wi-Fi. I'm on my LTE hotspot. Doesn't take that much data because you're talking BACnet private transfers, so the packets are very small. But I'm glad that actually managed to work. So that's coming out later. That we just wanted to show off this. We're very excited about being able to offer this to our customers. We'd like to add this, as a value-added piece of the puzzle to our equipment to help you guys out, to make it easier to install and maintain our equipment in the field. And there you go. So I'm not really, oops, this was pretty quick here. Any questions? Right, exactly. That's why I wanted to make it quick, but there's really not much really to talk about in regards to IntelliTask, right? A tool that makes your job easier. It wouldn't behoove anyone for me to sit here and talk for 30 minutes about how quick the tool is. That's why I'd rather I show you. All right. Well, I appreciate your guys' time and looking forward to lunch myself.
Thank you.